Welcome to the May 26th meeting of the Midcoast Community Council. It's 7:03 p.m. and we're kicking off this meeting. Dave, could you please call the roll?
Greg?
Here.
Dan?
Here.
Len? Here. Michelle?
Here.
Dave? And who am I forgetting? I do this every time. Very clear.
Jill's here.
Short-time memory problems. We're all here. You can start.
Okay. We're going to start with the Board of Supervisors report. Lena, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. And maybe this is stupid, but I do want to first offer my condolences to the Santa Clara VTA for the 8 people that were murdered today. So just take a moment to acknowledge them and their loss. Moving on to COVID. So San Mateo County remains within the yellow tier of the tiered system for the second week. And we expect to remain in the yellow tier until the state's June 15th reopening. I will include links with information regarding the tier breakdowns and the county data in the chat. Vaccinations continue to be the key to loosening restrictions. First dose vaccine clinics that are operated or supported by the county are open to anyone who lives or works on the coast side. No appointment necessary for almost all of them. And as of last week, over 81% of county residents 16 and up have had at least 1 dose of the vaccine. And as of this week, around 30% of San Mateo County residents aged 12 to 16 have received a dose of the Pfizer vaccine. Moderna is moving forward with getting approval for 12 to 16-year-olds as well. So we'll be seeing increased access to vaccines for that age group going forward. There was some curiosity around what grants were currently being pursued by the San Mateo County Fire Safe Council. So I spoke with Denise Ania, who is the president of that council, and she told me about the 4 grants that they've applied for. The only grant that they have been awarded this year is a PG&E grant for $80,000 for Highway 35, La Honda Road to Highway 84. They've applied for a Coastal Conservancy grant for 3 preserves, 1 in Woodside and 2 in San Carlos for a total a little under $200,000. And they've also applied for 2 CAL FIRE fire prevention grants, 1 in the Portola Valley Woodside area for $42,000 and a rather large one for the Highway 35 portion of within San Mateo County, as well as some surrounding Mid-Peninsula regional open space preserve land, and that totals to about $2.5 million. And then lastly, this isn't a grant, but the supervisor is working to receive $2 million over 2 years for fuel reduction, not on county property. And some of that money would then be allocated to Fire Safe Council. So they're preparing to use that for fuel reduction projects, defensible space inspections, hazard tree removal, evacuation route safety projects, among other things, the exact amount to be determined. And speaking of fire safe fuel reduction, the chipper program is active and the dates are coming up for a lot of the locations on the coast side. So I'll include more information on that in the chat. And lastly, there's been some interest in the closure of the gate at the top of Quarry Park. Nicholas Calderon, who is the director of county parks, is now off of paternity leave, so I was able to speak with him. And he told me that county parks is working with the private property owner of the gate to obtain access in emergency situations for emergency use. And they are also currently evaluating options for possible alternatives for routes into the park to open up some of those unofficial trails that have been closed. Those are all of my updates, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Lena, for that, and for mentioning the San Jose shooting. That's just chilling, and our hearts go out and thoughts go out to all the families. We'll go to Greg with his question.
Lena, I had heard talk that DPW and CAL FIRE were working on some monies, and I don't know that these are grants, maybe it's general funds, for the medians in El Granada. Do you have a status on that?
Yeah, and I can give a little bit of detail. I wasn't at the meeting that the supervisor was at, but he did speak with DPW and CAL FIRE. The total would be about 500,000. It wouldn't be a grant, it would be from Measure K funds for the next budgetary year, which is about to start, I think, next month. And so they're moving forward with that. Someone from DPW is available to come and speak to the MCC, and I think Michelle can speak to that further if she would like.
Yes, yes, we'll talk about this under future agendas, but at the June 9th meeting, we plan to have Kwa Vo, who is from the DPW, come and speak about the El Granada Medians project. Okay, next, Dan Haggerty.
Yeah, thank you, Lena, for your report. Couple questions. Has anyone in the county or Supervisor Horsley, have they reached out to Caltrans as far as, you know, thinning the eucalyptus on the side of Highway 1, the evacuation route north of the Highway 1 tunnel, and you know, various areas around the Midcoast, Half Moon Bay? We'll start with that question.
Sure, it's a great question. Not as of yet. There's a meeting at the very beginning of next month. It's a quarterly meeting that the county gets access to, where we speak with Caltrans. And that was something that our office had added to the list of things we wanted to discuss with them. There's much teeth to that, but we're gonna express our desire for that project.
Okay, yeah, because there's a lot of grant possibilities floating around now, so it'd be good to have that you know, ball rolling or started. And then second,
Len has been in touch with them. I'm not sure if that's why you raised your hand, Len, if you wanted to respond to that right now.
It is. Denise Ania of the Fire Safe Council has had specific sort of continuing contact with Caltrans about the highway right of way. We've forwarded to her our information on key places, and she has a common point of contact. And I think we'll hear more specifically from her either at the next meeting or soon after.
okay, and Lena, second question. Do you have any update from San Mateo County Planning Department regarding the fire station lighting, and specifically the cut sheets for the lighting that they have there now, so we know better what we're starting from? And I sent an email to Steve Monowitz asking some questions. I haven't heard a response. Do you have an update at all?
I don't have an update. No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
Stan. Greg, did you have an
Yeah.
update or something
Yeah,
you wanted to say?
I wanted to update Dan. I had written several executives in the city of Pacifica, including the town manager and the head of planning, about 10 days ago, regarding the eucalyptus surrounding Highway 1 as it came out of the tunnel, and what other properties might have eucalyptus, and would they be interested in getting involved in the local hazard mitigation plan. I have not heard back from anybody, but several Pacificans who knew I was writing this are following up in meetings they're having with the city management this week. So I'm hopeful we'll have some information. I was just trying to find out who owns the property so we could coordinate them with the local hazard mitigation plan.
thank you.
Any other questions for Lena? Okay, I don't see any more, so let's move on to other government officials. I see that we have Harvey Rarback here from the city of Half Moon Bay. Harvey, would you like to speak?
Briefly, yes, thank you. I too want to express our condolences for what happened in San Jose this morning. It's a tragedy. It's something that the whole country needs to come to terms with. But as a city, I don't know what we alone can do. But good news, the city council at its last meeting has decided to fly the LGBTQ progress flag at City Hall for the month of June, show our solidarity with some of our LGBTQ citizens. At the last city council meeting, we reaffirmed what our priorities for the upcoming year are. There are 5 of them. I'll be glad to talk about any of them in detail, but briefly, they're affordable housing, public health, safety, and emergency prep, community climate resilience and sustainability, economic recovery and development, and lastly, we added redistricting. So that's what we have on our plate for the next year, and that's a lot. Finally, those of you may have seen in the Half Moon Bay Review in Pescadero Pebble this morning that we are going to be considering the possibility of the city hiring a police chief while we're still contracted with the sheriff's office. That is a mechanism that we might have so that we can actually influence police policy and public safety. That's going to be a very interesting beginning of a very long, I predict, discussion. You're all welcome because, you know, we all have a vested interest in the Midcoast on policing. The same San Mateo Sheriff's Office that contracts with us works on the Midcoast. So we're sort of all in this together. And as you undoubtedly know about the interest in police reform, it's very relevant, and we're going to try to see what we can do to improve policing in Half Moon Bay. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, Harvey.
Sure.
Any questions?
I have a question for Harvey. Is it
Okay,
Harvey?
go ahead, Sid.
Why don't they put traffic on one of their top 5 priorities? I'm just curious because that's one of the biggest things everybody gripes about. Just going to turn the other eye, or they didn't even think of it.
We do have a plan on the bad weekends in the summer, that the hot ones where we're going to try to do relatively minor things, but there isn't a hell of a lot we can do.
Personally, I think if you say it like that, you'll never do it. But why don't you think about hiring a traffic analysis person to let you know what you could maybe do? Little things, little adjustments, you know. I know they don't want to widen any highways, but you know, maybe they could trim some trees so you can see the light at Frenchman's Creek when you're approaching, and little things like that. Just saying. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Sid.
Okay, any other questions for Harvey? I don't see any. Do we have any other government officials who would like to speak?
This is Neil from the Parks Commission. I'd like to speak, but I know that Sid wants to speak too on the same issue, so I'll just speak during public comment.
Okay,
So we can speak.
that sounds good. Thank you for being here. We are going to move on to public comment next. If I don't have any other, I see a couple other government officials, but I haven't seen them raise their hand or anything. So we're going to move on to public comment now. Just a reminder, if anyone does want to speak during public comment, please go ahead and raise your hand using the Zoom function. And the way to do that is there is a reactions tab at the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer, and you click on reactions and then click raise hand. If you don't find it there, it may be under the participants tab. If you're on a mobile phone, it's under the more tab. And if you are dialing in from your phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. Okay, so let's start. Let's actually start with you, Neil, since you you already kind of started. So let's go ahead. I'll call on you, and you have up to 3 minutes during public comment to speak.
Great. Neil Merrilies, San Mateo County Parks Commission. We have a meeting coming up next week, next Thursday, if anybody's interested, at 4 o'clock. And one of the things we're going to bring up is something that Sid wanted to bring up, which was the Parks Mitigation Fund. I don't know exactly how much is in the fund, but the fund has been used for, fairly small things over the years. A couple.
Can't hear him. Can't hear.
The rest of us can. So
Really?
Crank up your
Yeah.
volume. That's what I did.
Or speak closer to the mic, maybe. I don't know.
I can't hear him either.
How about here? Is that better?
About the same.
I don't know what I can do. I'm not muted. I'll just try to.
Yeah.
Speak up.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead and continue. I can hear
Yeah.
you fine.
If everybody remembers the Parks Mitigation Fund, that is something developers pay into and remodelers when they build. And the thought was that the coast is special and that we don't have any cities here. And because of that, we don't have some of the amenities that you have in cities, like kids parks and community centers and things like that. And so that we have a special fund for things like that. And in the past, it's been used for the Moss Beach Park, and it's going to be used for the pump track. And so it's good to have money like that sitting around for things that come up. But Sid came to me and she said, well, it shouldn't be used for little things. We should save it for a big thing, like a community center. And I said, at first I thought, well, Sid's just causing trouble, but I think she's right on the money, and that a community center is something we talk about every once in a while. We've talked about it over the years, but we haven't really done anything about it. And if that's the case, then that fund will just continue to be used for things that come up. But I'm going to bring it up at the Parks Commission, but really it should come from you guys. If you could, pick a site. The county has lots of land. Sid's has a couple of suggestions. If we pick a site, we pick what we want to do, and then we could start raising money and look for grants and figure out how to do something. But it really should come from you guys. It shouldn't come from the county. It should come from the coast, I feel. And so anyway, that was my thought. It's a long-term project. It's something that always gets kicked to the back burner. But why not? Why not delve into it a little bit and see if we can't come up with something? I know the GCSD is talking about doing something, and that would be great. They aren't coast-wide. They're more specific. I don't know how they'd feel about using money from their constituents for people that aren't in their area. And in any case, the county does have this fund, and so it's something that I intend to talk about at the Parks Commission, and I would encourage you guys to talk about on the coast, because ideally, this is the kind of thing that should come from the citizens of the coast. So thanks.
Thank you, Neil. That's great to have your support on that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next person to speak during public comment, and that will be Sid Young.
Thank you. How's everybody hearing me? Good? Okay. I just kind of want to counter a little bit of what Neil said. The county actually did in 2002 a Midcoast recreational needs assessment for parks and rec. And at that time, a lot of things have changed since then. Just let me express that. We had Moss Beach Park was started by some parents, including Neil, and they hand built all the little structures. Let's see. Fitzgerald was definitely a county park at that time. And there was nothing in Montero. They're calling the state beach a park, but that's a state beach. I think in El Granada, there's, at that time, Quarry Park was run by Midcoast Parklands, and it later became county property and county run. So all these years, they had the idea to acquire land for a park, local park, and recreation. And they gave money away after they started collecting that fee, quite a bit of money to El Granada Elementary School to upgrade their fields, I guess with the idea that they would, you know, have some recreation there for the local community. But most of the money that has been spent has been for what I would call more like countywide visitor serving things. They paved the trail at Murata Surf. They, I think Neil told me that they put a staircase down to Surfers Beach, even though that's Half Moon Bay property. We paid for it out of our mitigation fees. Basically, Nicholas and I are not in agreement about what that fee is for. I read all the documents in the 2002 report, which when Rich Gordon was our supervisor, and it all said that the basic goal was to acquire land to have a community park. And we have acquired land, and actually the county has acquired quite a bit of land, but we still don't have a place to have a community center. Now, I was on one of the fire commission YouTube videos, or whatever you call it, Zoom meetings, where Dave Cosgrove said, well, you need to find a place for refuge if there's a different type of hazard like a fire or a tsunami. We don't have even a community center to hole up in, you know, like that's usually where the big communities go when there's a mass exodus. I think they used Half Moon Bay High School for the Pescadero during the fire last year, but we don't have any big facility like that. It would be nice to have something where you could hold a meeting and not be crammed into the Granada Sanitary District little tiny room. So I really feel that our community deserves it. The funding mechanism is problematic. We would have to either do a complete community facilities district, or is somebody talking? I'm hearing background noise. Oh, well, anyway, we would still have to figure out the funding for the ongoing running of a place. But what I'm going to propose next Thursday is that the county has a whole bunch, they have 119 acres on the Pillar Point Bluffs, but most people just use the upper trail. They do not use that area that runs straight along Airport Street. And that's where the proposed coastal trail is going to go to eventually. But one of the things in the 2002 report said that it needed to be near transportation. The bus goes down there. It needed to have easy access and plenty of ample parking, that sort of thing. They could put some sports fields there. It's flat. You don't have to do a lot of excavating to build on it, or even to create sports fields like soccer for kids and a lot of the things that, as we all know, local kids have been building their own skate park in Moss Beach and their own pump track on county land in Murata Surf. So I think our kids, I don't even have kids, so it's not my agenda, but I feel like our community needs a place where you can have senior activities, after school activities, meeting room, that sort of thing. How to fund it, that's another story, because El Granada and their sewer district went ahead and got park powers, but part of their funding is coming from Half Moon Bay residents. So, you know, I don't know how they would feel to let Moss Beach and Montera residents use it, but you know, that all has to be discussed. Basically, the story is they feel that's their money that they can use whenever they need to.
Please wrap up, Sid.
I'm
We've
trying
gone well
to,
over.
I'm hearing background noise, so I'm having a hard time understanding what's going on. So basically, I think that the general focus of what that fund was for has been re-evaluated, or I guess you'd say, is subject to interpretation. So anyway, that's what I'm going to talk about next Thursday. I have a PowerPoint presentation I'm working on. I did put in a public records request, and I got back a lot of, I would call it accounting gibberish, and even Nicholas and Neil looked at it and couldn't quite explain to me where that money came and where it's going. And
thanks, Sid.
the county has not provided several reports for quite a few years of what they've been using the money for. So anybody who would like to maybe see getting a community center would be really great. And I just want to say
Great,
one more
thank
thing.
you.
I was on
Sid.
the fire board call with Jill, and I heard they got a variance for that lighting. I don't know if Jill heard that.
Okay, we'll go back to Jill later on
Yeah, I know.
that topic. Okay, thank you for that. I
Sure.
saw that Neil had his hand raised, but maybe that was from before. So actually, we're going to go to Barbara Dyneck. She wasn't able to find the raise hand button, but she would like to speak.
Sorry, I don't know. I looked for it. I couldn't find it. Anyway, a couple things I wanted to say, which is that, as you know, the Granada Community Services District is using our property tax revenues. And one of the top priorities for us is to acquire a community center, which would be open to all area residents. It's not going to be limited to just El Granada residents. I also wanted to point out that Half Moon Bay residents are not contributing to our effort because we have to pay 18% of any funds that we spend on parks back to Half Moon Bay to pay them back because they feel that they provide park services for their residents. So this is a high priority for us. We're working toward it. I don't want to get into the specifics right now, but we are looking for a community center, and we'd be happy to talk to the county about ways that we might work together on, we have some funding, but I think it would be good for us to talk to the county about potential collaboration on community center and the functions that we could provide for this whole part of the coastside. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Barbara. Greg had his hand raised. Greg, did you want to speak during public comment?
Yeah, I want to address this issue for everybody who's watching and attending. First, what Barbara said, I agree with her. Secondly, through Freedom of Information Act requests I sent out in February, I think it was, I finally got 2 sets of replies from the county. Sid has copies of this. The numbers are confusing and missing, but if anybody on this call would like to be copied on what I got, including you, Neil, I can share the information I have from the county about the status of that fund. So if you put your email in the chat or write me directly at the MCC, I'd be glad to share what I have as we maybe put this on a few.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Next, Dave Olson.
Just a quick update. At the February 10th MCC meeting, Nicholas Calderon reported that the Midcoast Park and Rec Development Fund balance at that point was $497,319. He did not have a breakdown. He also gave the balances for 2017, 2018, and 2019. He did say that a report was due from the planning department, not parks, from the planning department to the Board of Supervisors, quote unquote, soon. I have not seen that report at an agenda since then, although I might have missed it. That's all.
You didn't. He talked to me today. They don't have it for the last 6 years.
No, they do have it. It's on the MCC website for a number of those years. The only ones missing are 2017 through 2020.
Okay,
And
thank you,
remember,
Dave.
those are fiscal years, not calendar. I'm done.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone else want to speak during public comment on items not on the agenda tonight?
I think Fran is waving her hand.
Oh, okay. Fran, go ahead. You have 3 minutes. You'll need to unmute yourself. I sent you a request to unmute, so there should be a box that pops up that you just accept.
There, now I got
Okay.
it. Hi,
Perfect.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Neil, for bringing this up. It's one of my pet peeves. I really would like to see more of the assessment fees spent on community parks. I've read a lot of the documents also, and it seems like a lot of money has gone to places and they've not purchased, and it's been there for 20 years now. And we haven't gotten one park. Well, they did, I will say they did purchase for Quarry Park for us, but I'm on the MPL group. I'm one of the ones that started MPL that managed and created, cleared Quarry Park from a dilapidated horse corral. And we did it all ourselves by hand, worked hard and managed it and created the park and managed it for 15 years. And we got no credit for it. And the county took it over, and now it's a regional park again. So we don't even have that. And there, you know, as the federal law states, we're supposed to have so many mini parks, neighborhood parks, or community parks per 1,000 population. Each community should. And there was nowhere near that. And if we hadn't gotten Burnham Strip now, and the Granada District got that, we wouldn't have any parks here. So we really need some more land, and it wouldn't hurt for the county, since you know, all the other cities do have money from the cities. The county is our government. They have to help us with some of that money, whether it's the fees or direct money to help us, maybe help us towards the community center and help us acquire some maybe little pockets of land where we can put something. That's it. I agree with Sid on most everything she said, and that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Fran.
What can I say? One other thing, another subject, since this is
Okay.
public.
Yes, you have one more
I
minute.
just want to put my word in again that I hope you will consider the fire district, you know, clearing of the shrubbery and all of that. But I want the county to do preventive fire, not just prepare for fires. And I hope you will take that up. I think you're doing a letter on that or something. If not, I hope you will, and I support that. We've got to get to preventing and whatever they can do. And Governor, I heard that I think he's given $2 billion with a B to the state now for fire prevention. And I don't know how much the county has gotten, but I hope they use that this year for that cause, for prevention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Fran. Yes, we will have fire on the agenda again on June 9th, and probably both meetings in June. We just don't have any topics on tonight's agenda, but we will be discussing it during future agendas, and we'll definitely have some topics at both meetings in June. Okay, next we're going to go on to the consent agenda. The item on the consent agenda tonight is the minutes from the May 12th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes of May 12th.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Dave, would you please call the roll?
Jill,
Yes.
Len,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes,
Dan,
Yes,
Claire,
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so passes unanimously.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And next we're going to move on to the regular agenda. So the first item on tonight's regular agenda is Reimagine Samtrans. And we have Amy Linehan, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Samtrans here to give the presentation.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Amy Linehan. So you did pronounce that right. I am a public affairs specialist with Samtrans. I'm also joined by my colleague Millie Tollison. She's a principal planner at Samtrans. So tonight, I just appreciate you giving us a little bit of time in your agenda. We are going to provide an update on Reimagine Samtrans. And Reimagine Samtrans is our project to look at our entire bus network and make some changes. We're in phase 2 of public outreach of the project right now. So tonight's presentation is going to focus on 3 network alternatives that we're looking for public comment on right now. Millie's going to share her screen and run you through a brief presentation, but really what we're looking to get is the council's feedback on those 3 alternatives, the possible impacts that some of those alternatives may have for cities along the coast. And we'll also talk about some of the public outreach that we've been doing throughout this period. I think the key takeaway for tonight is really we just want to get your thoughts on what you think about what we're proposing. These are just proposals. Nothing has been decided yet. Nothing has been determined. What comes next in this project is really going to be based on what we hear from members of the community and councils like yourselves. So I'm going to turn it over to Millie, and she's going to run through the presentation, and then we just want to open it up for conversation and questions and discussion after that.
Thanks, Amy. So hi, everyone. Good to be with you. I'm Millie Tollison. Like Amy said, I'm a principal planner on the Samtrans planning team, and do have just a brief slide presentation to give you this evening. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So I'm going to go over just our project goals and timeline, and then spend a few minutes introducing the alternatives that Amy mentioned. And I'm going to focus on a summary of the potential changes on the coast side. And then I'll wrap up with just a reminder of how the public can give input on these alternatives, and then happy to take any questions that you may have or any comments. So when we started Reimagine Samtrans, we established 3 goals for the project. And those are to improve the experience for our existing customers, to grow new and more frequent ridership on our buses, and to build our own efficiency and effectiveness as a mobility provider. And we, like any project that has been ongoing for the last couple years, we had to really kind of revisit how COVID-19 and all of the impacts that it has had may affect our project goals. And we believe that it's more important than ever that we focus on our existing customers, because many of them are those essential workers that we were also reliant on during the pandemic. We also acknowledge that there's a little more uncertainty in the near term around the new rider market, just as people sort of get comfortable again, hopefully using transit or trying transit. But we're hoping that we can still attract more frequent riders. And then, of course, more important to be efficient and effective with our resources as well, as we really saw kind of the fluctuation of our resources during the pandemic. So this is our project timeline. We are right in sort of the middle of the project, just wrapping up our public outreach phase 2. We started the project in summer 2019, and we did have to pause the project to do COVID-19 response planning last spring, but spent this past winter designing our bus network alternatives, which we are currently seeking feedback on. And then after we close this outreach period, we will begin developing what we call a preferred network. So one new bus network, and we will seek our board's adoption of that new bus network around the end of the calendar year, and begin implementing the changes in summer 2022. And we did a lot of work to get to this point. We did existing conditions analysis, really looking at where people are riding our buses right now, what's working and what's not working right now for our system. We did a big round of public outreach in fall 2019 to really find out what are the community's priorities for Samtrans and for bus service. And then we also did market research, focus groups, and a statistically significant survey of the whole county to find out both from riders and non-riders about their perceptions and their desires for transportation. And all of that really came together into the 3 bus network alternatives that we have now. So jumping into the alternatives, just want to set a little more groundwork. We created 4 guiding principles building off of our goals. So we worked with our board on these guiding principles, and these will help us as we create our preferred alternative. So we want to employ customer-focused decision-making, design service that can be reasonably delivered by our workforce, namely our bus operators who are so crucial to our whole business, be an effective mobility provider, and providing transportation services that support the principles of social equity. And there are many things that we heard about from the community that we want to do in all 3 alternatives, or regardless of which alternative we end up moving forward with. We want to be more efficient with our scheduling and also address reliability and on-time performance, which we have heard a lot of concerns from the community about, as well as improving connections at our county and regional hubs. We would like to add or improve service in our high need areas. So these are areas where households are less likely to own their own car, or maybe paid a lower wages, or identify as a racial or ethnic minority. And we would like to, again, be more efficient with how we're allocating our resources, being mindful of using all the capacity that we can, especially on our school-related routes. And finally, reducing the duplication of routes within our system. So we came up with these 3 alternatives, and each of them has a different theme. The first is to emphasize direct and high frequency access to places within our county. The second is to improve connections to rail and to the broader region. And the third alternative retains geographic coverage of service within our county. So now I'm going to dive into the coast side in particular, and I'll go alternative by alternative. So in alternative 1, sticking with sort of the directness theme, we are proposing to remove some of the low ridership deviations on our Route 17. And our Route 17 is the kind of brown line that runs up and down Highway 1 between Lindemar in Pacifica and down through Half Moon Bay, and makes some limited trips even further south to Pescadero. So it goes through along the Midcoast. And again, we would propose to remove some deviations that add time and really do not generate very much ridership, such as the Kenyatta Cove residential area, Seton Coastside Medical Center, and Sunshine Valley Road. But by doing this, we think that we could increase the frequency on Route 17 to hourly. Right now, it only runs every 2 hours on the weekends, which we know is very difficult to make use of. And so we would propose to increase the frequency of the Route 17 to hourly on the weekends. Route 294, which is the purple line that heads over 92, over to the Hillsdale area, would no longer serve College of San Mateo in alternative 1, and would operate again hourly during the midday. So right now it runs every 2 hours during the midday on weekdays, and we would propose to make it run every hour. And then up in sort of the northern coast area, north of Pacifica, making connections up to BART, Route 112 would operate only between Sharp Park and Serramonte, but get improved frequency. And Route 110, which connects between Lindemar and Daly City BART, would run every 30 minutes, 7 days a week. So that's actually a pretty big improvement. And that could be good for people who may need to connect at Lindemar from the 17. So looking at alternative 2, many of the same kind of proposals in this one. 294, the purple line would no longer serve CSM, but would operate hourly all day long on weekdays. Route 112 would operate between Sharp Park and Colma Bart, and Route 110 would again get that bump up to every 30 minutes. And then Route 118, which is our limited stop route, would run every 30 minutes between Lindemar and Daly City Bart. And we would really look to optimize the connections between routes at Lindemar, such as the 118 and the Route 17, in case people need to transfer to ultimately get up to a BART station. And finally, in the third alternative, Route 294 would continue to serve CSM in this alternative and would operate hourly. And then one thing that we're excited about, and I'm particularly excited to hear from this group about this idea, is the potential for what we're calling an on-demand zone, or an on-demand type of service in the Midcoast area. And it's shown in an orange shading on the map. So it actually extends up to like the Princeton area and down into Half Moon Bay. And the way that this service works is that it is a smaller type of vehicle that can be booked, where trips to or from anywhere in this zone could be booked in real time using an app or by making a phone call to our customer service team. And it's a more flexible type of service. It's a service that can be good in places where there isn't great pedestrian infrastructure, or smaller buses can better navigate the roads. So we are interested to know, we're very interested to hear from the community about any interest in this type of service on the Midcoast. This is again something that would run, it would run 7 days a week, and it would be available to book trips to or from anywhere in that zone using a phone or using an app or making a phone call. And then up in the top part of the coast side, north of Pacifica, Route 112 would actually be deleted, but would be replaced with a more frequent 110. And that would run every 30 minutes, 7 days a week. So just to wrap up before I'm happy to take questions, we are seeking the public's input on all of these proposals just for a few more days. We have been doing outreach since early April. So we are nearing the end of our outreach period, but would certainly invite people to make their voices heard over the next few days by visiting reimaginesamtrans.com. Or calling our customer service team. They're available to answer any questions, even specific questions about the alternatives, and take feedback. But we do have a survey on our website. We also have done a number of social media events and public meetings, as well as some limited in-person pop-up events. And unfortunately, we have done all of our formal public meetings. Our COSIDE one was on May 5th, but if you go to this website, the recording is there and the presentation is there, so you can hear what the conversation was like. It was a really great conversation and really well attended. Online, this was all on Zoom, obviously. So this is just a screenshot of where to click once you get to our website to take our survey. And again, just a reminder that there's much more work to still be done on this. We're going to take everything that we heard and combine it into one preferred network. And we will probably take pieces of each of the alternatives and try and put them together into the best possible plan. So that is all for my presentation. Maybe I'll go ahead and stop sharing just so we can see people, but I'm happy to pull up the maps again if we'd like to.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Amy and Millie. We're gonna first go to the council for any questions, and I will start with Dave Olson.
Not really a question, but to clarify, the last day for public input via the website is May 31st.
Yes, yes,
Just
sorry, I should have said that out
anybody who
loud.
wasn't sure what that actually meant.
Yes, thank you. I should have said that out loud. Yeah, it was on the screen, but I should have said it out loud. May 31st, please, for all comments. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dave. Next, Greg Diegues.
Millie, bus 17, you mentioned an hourly service on the weekends. Can you clarify during the weekdays and on weekends, is that one bus going north and one bus coming south every hour, or is it just one bus going one direction? And can you specify what it is during the week?
Yes, in fact, let me actually reach and grab my little resource book here, but I will clarify that it is one bus in each direction. So when we say once an hour, we mean in each direction. And then as far as what we do right now, so we have currently on weekdays, we have every 60 minutes, once an hour, all day long into the evening. And then Saturdays and Sundays is 120 minutes every 2 hours. So we would just propose to make that standard 7 days a week, hourly service in each direction.
Does that answer your question, Greg? Did we lose Greg? Oh, a thumbs up, I see it. Okay, Dan Haggerty. Dan, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Millie. A couple questions about your report and some concerns. What is the new bus system? You had that written in your what do you mean by that? Scheduling system or new bus system? What?
I mean, so we've been using the word system and network kind of interchangeably. So we mean, you know, the new system, the new Samtrans bus network.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that answers. Yeah.
And then under the efficiency part, you used all capacity, maybe with some school related stuff. So what do you mean by all capacity?
Yeah, good question. So I didn't bring this into the presentation because we don't have any of these proposals for the Midcoast, but we have some school related routes around other parts of the county where there are, like, for example, like 2 routes that have very similar routing that they take to the same school, and each of them is like half full. And so we're proposing in some cases, and there's actually an example of this up at Terra Nova High up in Pacifica, where we would propose to consolidate those 2 routes into one new route where most of the neighborhood service is preserved, but we can, instead of running 2 half full buses, we can run 1 full bus.
Okay. In the past, there was some talk. I went to one of the meetings in Half Moon Bay at the Ted Edcock Center. I don't know, it was about 3 years ago, I think. And there was some talk about bringing in the articulated buses down here, which I was against, and I spoke for my reasonings. Are you planning in any way? Is that, you know, just difficulty getting around them and you know, with anyway, so.
I have not heard any plans to do that. I can certainly note down that concern. But again, there's no plans for that sort of efficiency of school service down in the Midcoast. So we wouldn't be talking about putting like 1 long articulated bus for school service.
And okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. And you know, in the past, all of these meetings, there's been a lot of interest in express buses to Daly City BART or maybe San Mateo Caltrain. But I didn't see anything really in tonight's presentation regarding that, or has that kind of faded away, or it seems like it's been an ongoing, regular kind of a thing coming from the community?
Yeah, so I mean, what you probably, hopefully what you saw in some of the proposals is an effort to make our routes more direct. so that they can get from point A to point B faster. Like that's actually some of the rationale for removing some of those deviations on the 17. So although we wouldn't propose to call that route an express, we're looking for those opportunities to reduce the travel time. So
Okay.
which is what people want out of an express route, right? Is that faster travel time.
It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. So although we're not calling it that, we're looking for those opportunities. And, you know, at this point, we're looking at more optimizing those connections at Lindemar as opposed to one long route up to BART, especially now that we are doing free transfers on our Clipper and our mobile app. So that's kind of what we're proposing as of now, but we're, you know, want to see how that works out, if we can really truly kind of optimize those transfers.
Okay. And I can't remember the route number, but the regular one that I've used a number of times that pretty much takes you to Pacifica. I think it runs, it's always ran on schedule, from my opinion, from my experience, which really
That's great to hear.
Yeah. You said that you might remove it or replace anything that's removed will be replaced with something else. So the services, I'll always be able to get to Pacifica if I need to.
Well, I'm wondering, I mean, are you thinking of the Route 17, the one that just runs up and down Highway 1?
It might be 17. I can't remember now.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely planning on keeping that route, but
to Lindemar, right?
To Lindemar. Yeah.
Okay.
But there is a proposal. There's right now that route deviates onto Sunshine Valley Road. So I don't know if that's where you're using it, but that's actually one of those proposals that we are looking at for improving the directness, is to remove that deviation.
Okay.
But if you're not using it there, then you can rest assured that it will remain.
I'm not using it there. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Dan. Next, Claire Titant. Claire, you're still muted. There you go.
I have two questions on current service. One is about CSM. I constantly hear people saying that the current service is inadequate in that it's not geared toward people who take classes later in the day, and people I hear always want more service rather than less. But it sounds like that's not been your experience. That you think that people are not interested in that particular destination?
So what I'll say is that our ridership on the 294 from CSM heading west is low. That's not to say that it's not totally crucial to the few people who are using it. So that's definitely something that we're keeping in mind, and that's why it does remain in one of our alternatives, that deviation to CSM. But I want to agree with you that I've also heard what you said about needing to maybe look at the hours and see if there are some late classes that we're not accommodating with our hours of service.
Okay. The other question, you're mentioning school designated routes. You know, we do have a lot of kids that go to the middle school and high school here on the bus. I don't know. I think it's just the regular hourly bus, although there may be something special for them. I also hear that the pre-COVID, that bus was frequently overloaded and the kids did not have a way to get home. Is that something you've looked at?
So I can definitely take that feedback back about it possibly being overloaded. But maybe I should clarify that if I didn't mention one of the school related routes, it's because it's proposed to remain. It's not because it's proposed to be deleted. So yeah, we do run at least one special, I think it's the Route 18, if
Yes,
I'm not
that's right.
mistaken. One special route for school trips on the coast, and that would remain in the proposals.
Okay, and you may want to take a look at exactly what the capacity needs are once school gets started again.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Len Erickson.
As a person who does not ride the buses very frequently, it's been very hard for me to understand the alternatives comparing to each other because you drop things on and off, and I just really, it's hard to understand. And I think if you'd put it in one table, it would have been helpful for someone who knows the destinations but isn't familiar with your routes. Most particularly, I just want to, if you are in the Midcoast where we are and you want to get up to BART, you take bus 17, and then you would get on a Lindomar and then go. So what is your options to get to BART under these alternatives?
Yeah, so in each alternative, our Route 110 would remain, which is the route that goes between Lindomar and Daly City BART. It makes a number of stops, so it's not particularly fast. But what the other route option that we have is our Route 118, which is a limited stop bus between Lindomar and right now it goes to both Colma and Daly City BART stations. But we are, one of the things that we're looking for community input on is whether they would like to go to one or either of those BART stations, because it's not that efficient to go to both. So those are really the two options that would remain. There's varying levels of service on the 118, and again, different destinations, different BART station destinations in each of the alternatives. But those are the two routes that I would say would be the best connections from the 17 at Lindomar.
Now, for your on-demand zone, so that's really just Half Moon Bay up to Princeton, right?
Yes, that's how we've drawn it so far. Mm-hmm.
So what's the what's the nature of the vehicle such that you exclude Moss Beach and Montera? Is it just what I don't understand how you're delivering it, so it's hard to critique it more, but it seems fairly limited in terms of what you're providing, but flexibility sounds good.
Yeah, so the rationale, I think, for the number or for the extents right now is trying to balance serving as wide of a service area as we can with, you know, trying to also balance the reliability of the service. You know, the bigger zone that we create, the more unreliable or the longer wait times that people may experience. And right now, I think we're thinking we would try and do this with 2 vehicles, and these would be small kind of shuttle size vehicles. So, you know, we could look at extending the zone further north, but we might need to put another vehicle or just more resources into it so that people don't end up with, you know, hour-and-a-half long wait times to make their trips. So that's kind of the balancing act we're doing.
Can you describe your performance goals? So if I'm in El Granada and I want to go to the Half Moon Bay Library, how long should I expect to have to wait for a pickup?
So that's a really good question. I don't know that we've established goals yet, but I think we should. But what I can tell you is that we actually did a pilot of this up in the Lindomar area a couple years ago. And what we found is that most people canceled their trips on their app if they had to wait more than 20 minutes. So that seemed to be kind of the sweet spot for this type of service, where if the wait time was looking more like 20 minutes or more than 20 minutes, people just decided not to use it. So I think that might be around the goal that we would have, would be having a 20-minute. And, you know, we're not going to be like Uber and Lyft at 5 minutes or whatever, but, you know, 20 minutes could be that sweet spot.
With respect to Uber and Lyft, so they provide the alternative between I'm in El Granada and want to go to the library and you take me directly, as opposed to another alternative in which you can pick up 2 other people as you go back and forth. So do you use both those models? Or yeah, what's your model once I'm picked up?
This would be a shared model. So this would be, you know, you might not pick up anyone else on your way, but you might if the system decides that, you know, I mean, we'll set the parameters for how long a deviation could be if someone's already in the vehicle, but you know, there is a chance that it could be a shared ride. model.
So if I'm in El Granada, you could conceivably pick up 2 other people before getting to the library if there were 2 people on the way who wanted to go.
Mhm.
I think it'd be helpful to quantify that a little bit better to see how well it works. I'm sure you've tried some models. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, looks like that's all the questions from people on the council. So we'll go to community members, starting with Sid Young.
Hi, I don't know the bus routes at all. I probably haven't used public transportation since I lived in San Francisco in the 70s, but I did hear a lot of people talking about the fact that because we have no school buses, that a lot of families who live in the back of Moss Beach and Montera, that off of Sunshine Valley Road, that's why the bus goes back in that route. And then there was some talk about them having to change that if Mid-Penn put their low, let's see, I guess they were calling it medium density affordable housing complex in, because if those people all have to work, who's going to drive the kids to school? So is that what Greg was saying was Route 17? Did you understand my question? Hello?
Hi, yes. I
Oh,
think,
okay.
yeah, sorry. I didn't know if you're asking Greg or me, but
Oh.
so yes, I think what I was referring to with the Sunshine Valley deviation is Route 17. Yes.
And is that all they're going to stop going back down Sunshine Valley or just on weekends? Because I thought that went down Sunshine Valley in the morning and the evening for school kids to drop off and pick up.
Yes, that's just one of our proposals, is to eliminate that deviation. There are some kids that use it, or just some people who use it, but it's not, it's a little underutilized. So it's just an option to try and improve the efficiency and that reduce the travel time for the other people who are using the route.
I see. And then the other question, well, I think they only do it in morning and afternoon for school, but I could be wrong.
I think you're talking about Route 18.
Okay.
Oh, maybe.
It's both 17 and 18, but 18 will remain and it's still on Sunshine Valley Road under all the alternatives.
I see. Okay. So then the other thing I was just going to ask is, in 2019, I had knee surgery and I got something called Ready Coast. It's like Ready Wheels for the peninsula, but it runs out here on the coast and you have to book it in advance, usually a day in advance, but it'll take you over to the other side of the hill to medical appointments because I had knee surgery, so I couldn't drive. Is that what this on-demand thing is kind of going to be like? Or more like a partial ride share app? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, no, it's sort of similar to Ready Coast, but it will be anyone can use it. So there's no eligibility criteria like Ready Wheels or Ready Coast. So, but I would say it's a little bit closer to a shared, shared ride share, just because of that real time element and like sort of the app based element. But again,
and the cost.
So the cost would be the same as taking one fixed route bus ride. So it would be $225.
I see. Yeah, it was pretty cheap for Ready Wheels, but I'm pretty sure they were subsidizing handicapped people and older people who didn't drive at all. So I don't know. I only had it for 6 months or something. Thank you. That was my 2 questions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to M. Fleming. Please go ahead and state your name if you'd like and your question.
Yes, Maureen Fleming. I wanted to mention that I think the smaller on-demand buses are a great idea for the coast. And based on personal experience, I live about 1.25 miles from the closest bus stop, which is down by the El Granada post office. So really, over the years, I have found public transportation really non-existent to me. And so I just hope that more emphasis go. And I have already been told that regular buses couldn't even like fit into the streets going up to El Granada Boulevard. So I just hope, and I will mention one other thing as I think about this. I too have had like foot surgeries and stuff. And I find that the transportation coming out of the coast and your two major medical areas are either the Stanford area or UCSF areas. And really, you have to just pay for your own Ubers and stuff to get over there because there is, in other words, Samtrans, I think, doesn't really go out of the county. And so that's about all that I have to say. But I like the idea of smaller on demand.
Great, thank you so much. Millie, did you have any response to that?
I was just going to say thank you.
Mhm. Okay, great. Next, Kimberly Williams.
Hi, thanks, Millie, for that presentation. I thought that was really great. I like Lynn, I'm a little confused because it would have helped to have larger graphics, and I didn't look at the website ahead of time, so I apologize. But I have been a bus rider on Samtrans, and I did attempt at one point to commute daily from Moss Beach to the BART station. And it was just impossible. And I've tried it off and on over the years to see if it improved, and it has never improved. So I guess I'm wondering, the connection seems to be the problem. And I'm wondering if there's a way to, especially now that we may be coming out of the pandemic, to take that opportunity to find or work on a customer base for that route and have a direct route from the coast side to BART. Because without that, it really is too long to make the trip if you have a long work day ahead of you and then you have to return in the evening. So those are my thoughts on that particular route. I don't know if you worked on improving the connection time, but there were many times when I waited more than an hour between buses at Lindemar. So I think that's something to think about. The other thing I have a question about is you're soliciting comments now, and this is in the middle of, still sort of pandemic conditions. And I wonder how, as we move out of this, how that's going to affect ridership, because it seems to me that ridership, of course, is down. And as we move out of it, maybe that's a unique opportunity to work on a new customer base and also influence rider habits. So I'll just toss that out there. And then I guess the last thing is, I just curious about your response to, pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic in how you're looking at these solutions. And would there be an opportunity at some point when things settle in to reevaluate and adjust based on people's habits? Thank you.
Thank you for all those comments, and thank you for trying to ride Samtrans. We appreciate it. As far as sort of reevaluating and adjusting things in the future, I think I definitely want to point out that although we are going to begin implementing these changes in summer 2022, we make changes to our routes as many times as 3 times a year. So we absolutely can, and I anticipate that we will refine all of these recommendations after we start implementing them to see what's working and what's not. So this is definitely not the last opportunity for refinements and new ideas. Definitely just want to make a little plug that I know there's some really smart people now at Samtrans who are really trying to improve the connections, particularly at Lindemar. So I would definitely just hope that you'd give us maybe one more shot after we implement this, because I know there's some real direction and hope to improve on the connection front. the timed connection front. And then, yeah, I think just as far as kind of pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, we are definitely just in kind of monitoring conditions phase right now. I mean, like many people, we don't really know exactly what the future holds with remote working trends. And we're going to have to really, I think, try and put together the best new network that we can this summer, but leave as much room for flexibility to receive new information over the next year as things hopefully kind of settle back into whatever the future holds.
Okay, great, thank you. Next, we'll go to Fran Pollard.
Okay, hi. Thank you. I thoroughly support the smaller shuttle bus service. I've always been in favor of that and didn't know why it never was done here. And I think a really popular thing would be just up and down the coast all day long. It would help seniors. Most of us would like to just stay on the coast and go from our Montera to Half Moon Bay and just pick up riders as you go along. If you had maybe 2 shuttles at a time and one coming and one going, and take us to Half Moon Bay where we can shop or walk around or do whatever we want to do in Half Moon Bay. I think that would be good. Even the kids could use it after school. And seniors certainly could use it that way. And I would hope you'd do something like that. And for weekends, I think we need shuttle service for weekends to bring beachgoers down to get some cars off the road, and have, from north coming down the coast, from the south coming up the coast, from 92 coming down the coast. I guess you're going to need it on the weekends because there's just too much traffic and it's always at a standstill on good weekends. And so I think shuttle service would be great if you could accommodate that more. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Fran. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. So I'm going to close public comment on this. Did any other member of the council want to make any additional comments?
Yeah, I'd
Claire,
like to, sorry, go ahead.
okay, yeah, please raise your hands
Yeah,
and we'll just go around to anyone who's interested, but we'll start with Claire.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate your coming back to us with the progress. When I think about public transportation on the coast, I kind of think about 3 different things. One is commuter transportation, and I would think most of that would be going to, as we said, other mass transit depots. The other 2 may overlap. It's local transportation and visitor transportation. I am very, very excited by the fact that you're going to do some shuttle, not shuttle, but van type transportation, because we don't need buses really, except for the school. I know that there was an effort a couple of years ago to provide a visitor shuttle. I think that could be done better. I think it could work if it was done properly. And I kind of agree with, was it Fran that just talked about having a shuttle that goes up and down the coast all the time, maybe supplemented by this on-demand program that you're putting together. But regarding the on-demand thing, I have 2 concerns. One is, why would somebody use your service rather than calling an Uber or a Lyft? One. And number 2, my cat's in the way here. Why, I understand why you're excluding most of the territory that we represent from your program. But I think that if there's any way at all possible to include the entire Midcoast, you're going to get much better buy-in, and you're going to get a much more solid program, and you'll serve the needs of the people who need transportation to Half Moon Bay worst, because we're farther away up in Montera, Moss Beach, and parts of El Granada. So I think those are the points I wanted to make.
Thanks, Claire. Millie, do you want to go ahead and respond to that?
Sure. So it's let's see, you asked why would someone use our on-demand instead of calling an Uber or a Lyft. So I think one thing could be cost. I mean, it's $220, it would be $225 to ride our service one way. So for people who are cost constrained, this would hopefully provide a good alternative to Uber and Lyft that can still help them get to the local trips that they need to get to, or to connect to something like the 294 to go over the hill to other destinations in other parts of the county. So that's one thing that comes to mind.
Well, what I haven't done anything at all along any of this for a while. I don't remember what it costs to get an Uber or a Lyft from, let's say, Moss Beach to Half Moon Bay. Does anybody know?
Probably like $15
Oh,
to get a dedicated ride. You could also do the shared rides, which may make it a little bit cheaper.
so it's significant. Okay. But I really would like you to take a look at marketing some of this to the tourists and visitors too, because that's certainly one of our big problems is people on the highways with their car.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Dave?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what Claire just said about excluding Moss Beach and Montara. That's almost a quarter of the population of the coast from Montara through Half Moon Bay that you're excluding. And it's one of the most difficult areas to get around right now. I think it would be a truly major mistake to exclude that area from the on-demand service, even if you need to add extra vehicles. So that's really all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And I would just add to that and mention that it looks like it only goes to Princeton. So Pillar Ridge, which is a mobile home community, is also excluded. I think it would be important to include that as well as Moss Beach and Montara in the on-demand service. I see that I believe it was Maureen has her hand raised, but we did close public comment on this. So if you have a comment, please just go ahead and put it in the chat. Do any other members of the council want to speak before we close out this subject?
I'd like to say something.
Okay, go ahead, Jill.
I rode the bus home today from Half Moon Bay because my daughter and I share a car and she needed it. And I find it very relaxing to take the bus. I always bring a book, but I don't expect to get anywhere quick. So for me, it's my last resort, but I'm very thankful for the buses.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I agree. I find riding a bus very relaxing too, more than driving.
Okay, Dan Haggerty.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say I agree with Michelle and Dave in regards to the expansion of the on-demand up in the Montara and the other areas that are not included. Because Dave's right. The Montara and the Moss Beach area, it's much more hilly and hard to get up and down. So keep that in mind. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Dave, you still have your hand raised, but did you want to say something else? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close this out then. Thank you so much, Amy and Millie, for coming to our meeting tonight. We really appreciate it. Please, if you haven't already, put the link in the chat so that if anyone wants to make comments or submit official comments on that, they can. And we look forward to seeing the next phase. Okay, thanks so much. We're going to go on to the next item on the agenda, which is Sewer Authority Midcoast side. We have a presentation that Greg Dieguez is going to make, as well as a letter that we will present commenting on the lawsuit that is currently or is in process, I guess, against Sam. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg to give the introduction and present the slides.
Can anybody see the slides?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. So this is a complex topic, and members of the board, the agencies involved, are not allowed to speak about it, as I understand confidentiality rules. So I put this together from best available information. I did get a copy of 364 pages of filings in Santa Clara of the lawsuit, and so forth. So I've done my best here. The background is, and there's stories about in the 50s how the beaches were so polluted, they stank in the spring when the runoff started. Eventually, the sewer systems were put in place to prevent septic runoff into the ocean. Montera's was apparently the last. They built a fairly modern system in 1968. And in the late 60s, the systems in Half Moon Bay and El Granada, which were only single stage sewer systems, were found to be polluting. The government eventually forced the creation of SAM in 1976. SAM is the Sewer Authority Midcoast, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. But it binds together Half Moon Bay, Granada Community Services District, and Montera Water and Sanitary District. And they agreed to share the costs and build this joint system, agreed under some pressure. As a result of that joint effort, Montera dismantled its fairly new sewer system. El Granada dismantled it, and they built the new SAM plant in Half Moon Bay around the site of where the Half Moon Bay former system was. And these agencies are all linked together by a big pipeline called the Intertie Pipeline System. I want to just show you this map so you can understand the communities involved. And if you look closely at the red box on this map, Half Moon Bay has extended its rights further north into the harbor, Sam's Chowder House and some other stuff. It's what's called a cherry stem because it kind of sticks out there going north. And as a result, there are parts of Half Moon Bay, citizens of Half Moon Bay, that are served by El Granada's sewer system called the Granada Community Sewers, Granada Community Services District. This is a map of the Intertie pipeline system connecting those sewer districts. You can see on the top Montera's sanitary district. And because the terrain is hilly, especially Montera, the sewage actually has to be pumped under pressure uphill and then down to the plant, which is down in the lower right. You can see the words, the letters SAM WWTP, which is the SAM wastewater treatment plant. So if you remember the map before, you can see that parts of that intertie pipe are actually taking sewage from Half Moon Bay residents in Miramar and the harbor and Frenchman's Creek and delivering it to the treatment plant. So this intertie pipeline system was essential to the creation of the Consolidated Sewer Authority Midcoast. You wouldn't have a joint sewer system if you didn't have a pipeline to deliver the waste to the plant. This joint facility allowed public financing and continued growth especially in Half Moon Bay. And this intertie pipeline system protects against overflows during storms because the operators at the plant can shut down the flow from the north and let the sewage back up into the pipeline and then also into specially placed expansion tanks that are up in Montera and along the Burnham Strip in El Granada. So that way, and it's happened a couple of times in recent years, Half Moon Bay can consume the flow of the plant when there's an extreme wet weather event and the sewers are about to deliver too much to the plant. As I mentioned, this intertie pipeline system serves parts of Half Moon Bay proper, including the Cherry Stem and these other areas that are cited in the Joint Powers Agreement. It also, the intertie pipeline allows maintenance and repair shutdowns at the plant by holding sewage upstream. Half Moon Bay doesn't have any storage of sewage in its system. Now, there have been problems with this. And as a matter of fact, there's a great quote from the 70s and some guy who was amazed that Montero was going to be forced to abandon a new sewer plant and pump the sewage 7 miles south. So what's happened is that we've had a number of spills on the intertie pipeline system. As background, back around the time Half Moon Bay was under financial pressure from the Beechwood lawsuit, and you may remember that settled successfully, as I recall, with very little net cost to the city because they had insurance, but they were threatened with $30 and $40 million settlements at one point. So there were a bunch of, how can I put it, disagreements about what should be done, where the money should be spent. And the maintenance to the intertie pipeline system that should have occurred beginning around 2009 was not done. And then we had that 4-year drought, which ended with a very heavy rainfall in March of 2017. And that caused a spill from the intertie pipeline system pipes, which had not been replenished. The assets had not been upgraded, maintained. And as the blue quote at the bottom from the lawsuit says, that Sam recognized the benefit of $179,000 for delaying the construction and replacement of the failed force main for 9 years. So that's just reflective of the fact that the regulatory agencies understood that Sam hadn't been doing its homework. The good news is that that liability, which initially had been over $7.5 million, was quickly negotiated down to a gross stated amount of 3.5, and then down to a fine of about $500,000, plus making mandatory repairs, which Sam has now been doing with some disagreement. Over the future of the next 10, 15 years, and including the $6 million that's already been put into replenishing the intertie pipeline system, capital investments of around $22 million are going to be required. That includes an assumption by the accountants at SAM of about 4% a year for inflation. So I'm going to circle back and do this again just to make sure it sticks. In the 60s, modern wastewater treatment plants were built. There was a safe ocean discharge near Montero. Half Moon Bay and Granada had older systems. Then in the 70s, Fitzgerald Marine Reserve was created and extended. And that forced Montero to extend its outfall. But before Montero could do it, they extended Fitzgerald again, which made it uneconomic for Montero to extend it. On top of that, the state notified Half Moon Bay, Granada, and Montero of pollution violations and ordered compliance with the new clean water standards which were coming out in the 70s. And so Montero abandoned the plant. They formed, the three of them, SAM, the Joint Powers Authority. And then in the late 70s and early 80s, they constructed a new plant, a new ocean discharge pipe located in Half Moon Bay, and new treatment facilities. And then in July of 2017, Half Moon Bay filed a lawsuit against its partner agencies and named SAM in the lawsuit, saying that Half Moon Bay should not have to pay for work on the intertie pipeline system, which includes the pipe, the storage tanks, and some pump stations. This lawsuit's still active, and we understand court hearings are going to begin. So in the lawsuit, Half Moon Bay has stated it doesn't want to pay for IPS-related costs. It says the intertie pipeline system should be treated as a separate project, and if it were treated as a separate project, the Joint Powers Agreement says Half Moon Bay could then opt out and not have to contribute to pay. Half Moon Bay also claims it does not benefit from the pipeline system or have any rights in the capacity. In counterclaims filed by Granada and Montero, they say that the intertie pipeline system is an essential part of the joint integrated system since its inception and for over 40 years, and any work on it is not a new project. It's merely maintaining the existing infrastructure. And then they say that in an amendment to the joint powers agreement, all parties involved agreed to share all expenses on all components of SAM based on flows into the plant. And currently Half Moon Bay has about 58% of the flow. All prior costs involved in construction were allocated based on this amendment in 1979. As has been pointed out by these maps and also in passing by Barbara Dye, the intertie pipeline system serves residents in portions of the Half Moon Bay city limits. So 18% of Granada Community Services District residents are in the city of Half Moon Bay. And as I mentioned, the intertie pipeline system provides protection from overflow. As a result of the lawsuit, which jeopardized the operation of SAM and involved some turnover of personnel, Half Moon Bay agreed as part of the lawsuit, and a settlement was reached, to continue to pay those share of expenses under protest pending the settlement of the lawsuit. So SAM is able to continue to operate. My estimate of the initial cost of this lawsuit for Midcoast residents is about $1,000 per connection. There's $6 million currently, a little bit over, in expenses already been made. And as you saw on the other slide, there's about 22 million down the road, which will eventually be dedicated to replenishing intertie pipeline system assets. And then there's perpetual ongoing costs for the operation and maintenance of the pipes. So the potential long-term costs, again, this is my estimate, but it's based on data from SAM, about $3,000 to $4,000 per Midcoast residence. There's also legal fees across the three agencies that I estimated $1 million. And of course, those will go up markedly if this goes to trial. And if you've watched SAM meetings, as I have, there's a significant reoccurring discordance in the participation in the meetings that have resulted in delayed decision-making. Most recently, the Burnham Strip wet weather storage project approximately doubled in cost because it was delayed by disagreements over whether it was a good idea and what else should be studied. And then we also risk degrading assets if we can't continue to agree to maintain them. So I bring this background to the community because as a Midcoast resident and all of us, we're facing significant potential costs here. And I want to know what the community thinks we ought to do and what the council thinks we ought to do, what actions it would consider taking. And Claire has put together a draft letter. I know Dave has comments on it. So apologize my voice. That's the presentation.
Great, thank you, Greg. So next, I'm going to go ahead and present the letter on my screen, and then Claire can speak to it. I just also did want to correct a statement that I made when I introduced this topic about the nature of the lawsuit. It is Half Moon Bay suing Granada and Montera Water and Sanitary District in GCSD, not against SAM. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. We did post two versions of the letter on the Midcoast Community Council website. First was the original version that we posted, and then the group of three of us that worked on this made some changes today and posted an updated version. So we're going to be going off that updated version. If anyone has any questions, I can show you that just quickly the changes that we made. Hold on here. Actually, that might be a little easier said than done. So I'm going to have Claire go ahead and introduce the letter. Claire, you might be on mute.
I got it. I was
okay
doing it separately. Yeah, I want to go over the letter briefly because I want you to know what we're asking for. The MCC has no influence at all in any legal sense over this entire situation, and the county doesn't either. But we thought it was an important topic and that people should be aware of it. And we wanted to say what we would like to see happen. So the first 3 or 4 paragraphs of the letter are basically going over the history. As Greg says, this is very complex and very long, and we did the best we could to put together the best reckoning of what has happened in the past. The first paragraph pretty much says what Greg said about how the SAM, the coordinating agency, the Joint Powers Agency, was put together and how it's governed. So when you come down to the third paragraph, we did actually take a closer look today at what happened in 1996, which was when they were increasing the capacity of the sewer plant, which desperately was needed at the time. At that time, despite the fact that in general, all the expenses are shared, as Greg stated, in a very fixed proportional way based on flow and population, basically mostly flow. In 1996, when the plant was needing to be expanded, MWSD was unable to pay its full 25% or so because it was involved in litigation on another matter. At that time, Half Moon Bay and Granada paid additional money beyond what their original allotment was. And in return, Montera's right to additional sewage capacity was severely limited with the provision that any additional needed usage by Montera would be subject to surcharges. Other than that, the costs to the system were paid proportionally as was originally envisioned. The next paragraph, starting with about 2005, basically repeats what Greg said about what the dispute is regarding the lawsuit and the various issues that arose in trying to settle that. So in July of 2017, Half Moon Bay did file suit finally against, after extensive negotiations, against the 2 other agencies and SAM to exempt itself from these costs that had previously been shared, except for the one time, which I noted. And this has been really costly, not only in money, as Greg points out, but also in the fact that it makes it uncertain as to whether we can actually manage our own basic services on the coast. It is very costly to an area that has limited financial resources and has many other hazards and risks and needs that need to be addressed besides the sewers. And I think, to me, the most important thing is that it inserts, as I say, a painful wedge between Half Moon Bay and the Midcoast at a time when both Half Moon Bay and the Midcoast have been making a lot of effort to live together as cooperative neighbors. This seems like a particularly painful effect. So what we're advocating, let me just read you the last 2 paragraphs. The MCC advocates a renewed effort to find creative solutions to the challenges of providing sewage services to the coast side. Location, there are a number of things that really deserve attention regarding our sewage system beyond just who pays for what. Things that would need to be considered are the location and number of processing plants, the governance of SAM, financing structures, the use of recycled wastewater, preparations for drought, invigoration of ocean water, especially in the harbor, which has restricted flow of water, the role of storage tanks for recreation and firefighting purposes, and many other aspects of the situation could be addressed in exciting ways by community members committed to finding solutions rather than continuing rancor. The MCC calls for an end to wasteful spending and continuing a lawsuit that divides the community, and for a new commitment to expand our energies and money to explore ways for the coast side to cooperate in designing infrastructure that will serve the future while honoring the agreements of the past. So that's what we want to discuss and vote on tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Claire. First, we're going to go around to the council for any clarifying questions. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Please go ahead and raise your hand.
I got a question.
Yep.
Go
ahead.
I think it's to Dave and Claire, or Greg and Claire. So I'm interested in learning more about the state mandate. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly what year it was made that forced, everything to be combined. So I'm curious to the, the real intention. And so as a result of the state mandate, the IPS system was needed. So is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So the state mandate, has, I don't know if we've looked into the language and the intent, but that almost seems like, that the intent of the state mandate was, should play part of this. If the state forces us to have the IPS and work as a, three agencies to work together, and it's, I think it's something to kind of look around. I don't know if you have already, Greg or Claire.
What I could say is two things. Well, three. The copy of the lawsuit I got, although it's 364 pages long, does not include all the discovery that's gone on. It's somewhat out of date, and I do not have access. And I'm sure that the details that you want are in there. I have seen the grant of funding that was made, and I can share that with you. And you're right, that funding grant does presume that it's an integrated system. So if that's what you're asking about, yes, I have a copy of that document. But the third thing I have to say is, without getting into the Wayback Machine, which I've tried, I can't put my finger on the specific trigger document. So I can infer things, but I can't directly answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Next, we'll go to Dave.
I have one question, not specifically on the letter, but have any of the drafters of the letter conferred with county counsel's office on the appropriateness of the MCC commenting on a lawsuit regarding other government bodies?
Yes, we have.
Yeah, we were given clearance to do this, under guidance.
We've made every effort to be as objective as possible and to present facts rather than opinions to the best of our ability. And the county council said that it was perfectly legitimate to express facts and to gather community opinion about the situation.
I think the key thing, Dave, is that we're not a party to the lawsuit.
Okay, was that your only question, Dave? Okay, next, Len Erickson.
First, I assume from what I've read overall is that what happened to the Montero Water Sanitary District is that the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve continued to expand, and I understand why they would not want even processed sewage going into the Marine Reserve. So it's not that somebody said explicitly, let's just get them and make them come together, period, but that was a driving reason. Is that understanding correct, or do you think it was just let's be more efficient?
I think there were two things at work, but I can't put my finger on source documents. All I can go by is the testimony I've taken from some very old residents who've been involved. I think there were two things going on. There were clean water regulations coming into being, and El Granada and Half Moon Bay were in violation because their plants were quite old. Half Moon Bay became in violation because they created the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And then when Montero tried to move the outfall, they extended the boundary. So the state's wedge was a combination of, we have money for you, we're going to make you do it because of these regulations, and you can't have an outfall up here north of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. Does that answer your question?
I guess, so I'm right, it was the expansion of the boundaries of the reserve that drove Montero not being able to put their sewage there.
Right, but I mean, El Granada would have had to do it anyway. El Granada and Half Moon Bay needed an upgraded sewer system.
I understand. I just, so who are, in order for this request to have effect, positive effect, what has to happen? Who has to act? And how will they act on this letter to make us satisfied?
We didn't really want to tell people what to do because that's really not our place. Only Half Moon Bay can drop the lawsuit because they're the ones that filed it. But we were hoping that everybody would take a half step back and look at where they are and see the light.
Okay, but it did go into an arbitration process that I guess failed. So that meant all parties withdrew from it. I mean, it's just, while I'm supportive, I don't know that other than asking them to wake up tomorrow and quote, do the right thing, according to this view, that we have any other leverage. So is it?
I don't think we do. But,
Okay.
but it is exacting a toll of energy and money on all of us. So if it were to happen that people wanted to take another look at it, that would be great, in my opinion. But I can't tell them how to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Len. Next, Jill Grant.
I just have a little question. The fifth paragraph from the bottom says, meanwhile, the existing SAM plan is in need of major upgrades.
Plant. It should be plant.
That's what I wondered. So it's plant. Okay. And
was that it, Joe? Oh.
Yeah. I support the letter. It's just ridiculous, all this time and money they're spending on this. What do you hope that they will do? I mean, what is your hope for everyone to get along?
You know, it was really difficult to put all this together because it is so complex. And I think that there are people who obviously know more about it than Greg and I know about it. And I would hope that they would be motivated by the desire to help the community thrive, to take a closer look at what they know and decide what can be done.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Anyone else on the council? Len, did you
Just one other
have your hand raised?
Well,
yep.
Actually, I'm waiting for Harvey to comment and hoping that as a member of the Half Moon Bay City Council, although he may not be one of the voters on this, can shed some light.
Okay, we'll go to him in a moment. I just wanted to go around the council and finish doing that. But looks like you're the last person to comment on the council. I will go to Harvey next if he's ready to speak.
I am. We all agree that the health and safety of the coast side is our aim. That goes without saying. This presentation has been, as you would expect from the Midcoast Community Council, Midcoast centric. Nobody has talked about why Half Moon Bay has had to file this lawsuit. Uh, it is extremely complicated. I don't deny that. Uh, what Half Moon Bay maintains is that our ratepayers should not pay for infrastructure that doesn't benefit them. And the idea is that a judge will decide, does Half Moon Bay have to pay for these improvements that don't benefit our ratepayers? If the judge says that we do have to pay, we'll pay. If the judge says that we're not required, it's not consistent with the JPA, then we will, all the money that we have in fact contributed to SAM for the IPS in the last 4 years needs to be remitted to us. So that's why we're waiting for a judge to make a independent decision as to what really is the right thing. I heard mentioned today. I think the right thing is that the judge will agree that our lawsuit has merit. He may not. That's what litigation is all about. I will also say that we have tried to negotiate in good faith. We thought we had a stipulation, but at the last minute, it was not agreed to. That would have stopped this lawsuit, but we are committed to having a declaratory result, and then we'll know what is quote unquote the right thing. I'll be glad to comment or or answer any of the objections. But you have to understand that this lawsuit was not entered into frivolously. It was done for a good reason. And I'm hoping personally that whatever happens, we will be able to continue in good faith. There's a lot of bad blood, no doubt about it, but it can change. There's a lot of things that we need to do, like recycled water, that we can't do until we have some agreement as to who pays for what. And that's what we're waiting to find out.
Okay, thank you, Harvey. Your 3 minutes is up. I do see Len raise his hand. Did you have a question for Harvey?
Can you share 2 questions? Can you say roughly? I assume the result of this, if Half Moon Bay wins, is that Montero would have to pay a sum of money to Half Moon Bay?
And Granada. The lawsuit is Half Moon Bay against Granada Community Services District and the Montero Water and Sanitary District. And both of those other agencies, if Half Moon Bay wins, would have to reimburse Half Moon Bay for the money that we have stipulated that we're paying under protest for the IPS.
And so basically the operation of the plant itself is proportional to usage, and all the parties agree to that. So it's really the cost of transporting the sewage there from the different places. Is that
the lawsuit is only concerned about who has to pay for the upgrades to the IPS. There's a whole other issue about how we apportion the costs of operations and maintenance. That was under discussion for the negotiated settlement, but now we're back to the original 2017 lawsuit, which, as I said, only has to has a very narrow focus. Who is responsible to pay for the upgrades to the IPS? That's all that the lawsuit is about at this point.
Harvey, is the lawsuit also involving the storage tanks and pump stations?
No,
You're paying those under protest too, though, I think.
yes,
It,
Which means-
my understanding, Harvey, is that it does, but you're there. You have just recently paid under protest wet weather storage tanks, for example.
oh, correct, yes, and we paid for the repairs of the IPS that have occurred up to now, but we've stipulated that we're paying for them under protest, that if a judge agrees with us, then we need to be reimbursed. If not, we've already paid for the IPS improvements.
Thank you.
Sure.
We're going to go on to other members of the public who would like to speak, starting with Sid Young.
Hi, Harvey. Well, I could be wrong, but I don't think that a judge is going to solve all the acrimony because, there's still all the deferred maintenance on that sewer plant that Half Moon Bay deferred way back during the Beechwood lawsuit. They refused to do any upgrades at that time. And also, I recall from listening in way back when that there was a big tiff over who was going to be able to have the rights to distribute all the recycled water. And you can't say that, just because CCWD is the water distributor down in Half Moon Bay, that the fact that all of our sewage that's going down there with our water in it is not, something that we should share in that, I would call it revenue stream. But, they stopped researching the treated water sales because nobody could agree on that. So, that's dead in the water. That will just come up again if they try to start going back towards the recycled water issue. And then there's the whole upgrade of the plant, which is in sea level rise zone, which, even if they start maintaining that plant to the specifications that they should, that thing's going to have to be moved at some point, probably. They even, before, I recall hearing that when they did a review under one of the new managers, and maybe it was Keishan, I don't know, they found that some of the electrical systems were underwater, already. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues with that plant that I don't think are going to get solved just because a judge hammers down his gavel and somebody has to pay somebody else. I think it's going to keep going on. And, at some point you're going to have to build a new sewer plant probably because it is in sea level rise territory. I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm not on either side. I would like acrimony to stop, but, I don't think it's going to stop. And I do feel that intertie pipeline benefits Half Moon Bay, because if we didn't shut off the valve so you guys could put your 60% in during the wet weather months, when there's overflows, we would all be paying fines to the EPA like we have in the past. So it does benefit you that you can back up our sewer all the way 7 miles so that you don't have a turnoff at your end, my understanding, right? So when you turn us off and it backs up in our pipe, the 7 mile intertie pipeline that you're disputing, you're benefiting because then you don't overflow the sewer plant and have to pay a fine. That's all I'm trying to say. I think there's two sides to this coin, but like you say, the judge will decide at least part of it, who's going to pay.
Thanks, Sid.
Sure.
That's 3 minutes. Next, we'll go to Truthmaker. Truthmaker, if you'd like to say your name, go ahead, or you don't have to.
I'm sorry. Can you see me, hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. It's Chris Johnson. I didn't realize that I guess that's tied to my email or something. My name is Chris Johnson. I'm a member of resident of El Granada. Thanks, Michelle. Thank you to the council for this letter. because I don't think that it necessarily has to have an action item associated with it. Somebody was actually asking, what do you want us to do with this letter? What do you want to come out of this letter? I think it stands well enough alone as a statement from the community. I mean, the MCC is my community representatives, and I feel that my community representatives are making a statement for the community about this situation. And so on that level, I'm fine with this letter as a statement of the position of the MCC in the community. As to what should be done, I mean, it's, as Harvey has said, it's apparently a complicated matter of which it's hard to get the exact details on it. So exactly what should be done, this is my feeling on exactly what should be done. And that is Half Moon Bay really, what do they think their end game is here? They've already paid the money, and now this is kind of a legal, I don't know, almost a game. They've already paid the money, and now they're going to see if they can get it back with the premise that the inter-tie pipeline doesn't benefit them. And I just feel like that is a ridiculous, insulting premise that is guaranteed to create rancor between Midcoast residents or MWSD, GCSD ratepayers and City of Half Moon Bay ratepayers who probably aren't even aware of this situation. It's ridiculous position to take. Half Moon Bay, this is a splitting of hairs. Half Moon Bay needs to do the right thing for the greater good, which is just participate in this. And I know that Harvey would probably be saying, well, we are, and we're trying to get our fair share and what's right for us. This, and as I believe that Sid said, and others have said, this entire SAM system, the intertie pipeline, all of the components of this infrastructure benefit the entire coast side. And for one organization to say that this little piece doesn't directly benefit them, or which is, in my opinion, not an accurate statement to begin with, but for them to just say that, peel off a piece and say this doesn't apply to us, so we're not going to pay for it, and cause this kind of rancor with this lawsuit, which is maybe not technically, you would call it a frivolous law. This is a frivolous lawsuit in my mind, in that it doesn't need to happen. And I look to Half Moon Bay as the reason why this is happening. It doesn't need to happen. They should take the high ground in this one. If that's how they feel that they're being somehow screwed on this, take the high ground and do what's right for the entire coast side. And let's just move on and drop this lawsuit. Thank you to the MCC. And really, like, you did it in a mature, professional tone that is way more than I could have done, because this, I'm just really upset about this. And I thank my community representatives for making a statement about it. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Chris. Len Erickson, do you have another question? Or we are going to move into council discussion. So if any other member of the public would like to speak on this, please raise your hand now.
Barbara Dye.
Yes, go with the public first.
Barbara
I do have
Dye.
another question.
I'm not going to address the lawsuit. I agree with a lot of what's been said tonight. I did want to address just the current status of SAM and the fact that sea level rise is actually not going to affect SAM for quite a long time. It is not an imminent threat. The major threat to SAM is Pillarcitos Creek, which is right next door. A lot of attention has been paid to that as a potential threat and options to protect from it. And we are spending a lot of money right now to upgrade the SAM facility. And because the last upgrade was a long time ago, and those pumps are getting old and are needing to be replaced. I just didn't want the community to think that attention wasn't being paid as well to the SAM treatment plant, which serves us all. And so that is happening. I'm going to stay out of the lawsuit discussion for tonight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Does any other member of the public would any other member like to speak right now before we move to council activity or sorry, council discussion? Ann Rothman.
Hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to give my 2 cents as a thank you for bringing this topic up. And in particular, we should be looking at ourselves as a coastside community, not north, south, and how we're going to just fight in between. Everything is interconnected. We realize that with our transportation, as you talked about Sam tonight, just trying to get through the coast as far as traffic is concerned, and now this with the sewer. I mean, it always comes down to me as a power grab from Half Moon Bay, it seems, to the water system, and in particular Montero water system. I feel that the county as well as Half Moon Bay would love to see us be one system under their control. But that's not what the people voted on. We voted to have our own water system. And we need to figure out how to work together to make the sewer system work as a combined system, but the water is separate. And I would appreciate it if Half Moon Bay would just see that we are all neighbors and to please consider, closing this argument. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised from members of the public, so I'm going to close public comment on this issue.
I do have a question for Harvey.
Sorry, I don't see. Okay, if Fran would like to speak at it, go ahead, Fran.
I just want to thank Greg and Claire for doing that letter. That's a terrific letter. Yes, I support it. And yes, I think the best thing would be to drop the lawsuit and let's get on with business that's needed. And let's stop this nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Len, you had a question for Harvey, you said?
Yes. So Harvey, you said that it is all at this point been boiled down to the intertie pipeline. And it was stated that Half Moon Bay does use the intertie pipeline to send sewage back in a case of overflow. So if that's an explicit use of the pipeline, doesn't that negate your statement that you don't make use of it?
I think we need to have a judge decide whether or not that argument is valid.
I'm just talking about it from a common sense standpoint.
Excuse me?
I'm talking about it from a common sense. If you use the pipeline to do something, doesn't that reflect use of it and benefit?
I'm not going to litigate this, frankly. It's complicated. If it were simple, we would have all decided what to do a long time ago. I've heard arguments that the deferred maintenance is what's under is the basis of all what's going on. I've also heard arguments that it's a deferred maintenance from Midcoast members that have caused some of the recent extra maintenance that's been required. It's, as has been undoubtedly stated, very complicated. Half Moon Bay believes that our ratepayers should not pay for improvements that do not benefit them. If that is agreed upon by a judge, then we won't pay for them. If a judge says no, that we are required under the terms of the JPA, we will abide by the agreement. we didn't enter into this litigation frivolously. We did it in order to protect our payers, which I think is a worthy goal. And the lawsuit will be settled in the not too distant future. There's going to be a court date set. Discovery has already started. So just stay tuned to see how we end up. And as I stated, I'm hoping whatever happens that we can get together. And as been stated repeatedly, the coast side is a single entity in many ways, and we should all work together. And I'm hoping that at the conclusion of this lawsuit, we will continue to work towards the health and safety of the coast side.
Okay. Dave, you have your hand raised now. What would you like to say?
Sorry, it was for after public comment is closed.
Okay, yeah, I was actually going to go around the council then. I'm going to close public comment now, and I will go around to the council for comments on the letter, starting with you, Dave.
Okay, I would like to start by making a motion to approve the letter. And after that's seconded, I will make another motion to make major amendments to the letter.
I second the motion.
So motion to approve the letter and a second from Greg.
Okay, so
Dave.
Motion to approve, me, second Greg. I will then move to make major amendments to the letter. I would rather wait to show those amendments until the rest of the council has had a chance to speak. Do I have a second? Well,
Okay.
I don't have a second until I present that.
No. Do you want to make any comments before you share your amendments, just on the nature of those amendments?
Yeah, my major feeling is that we are addressing a very complex situation. Almost everybody that we're sending it to knows the complexity of the situation. The community has seen or can see the presentation and hear the video today. I don't think we need to reiterate the history in the letter. I don't think that serves any useful purpose whatsoever. And then there are a few things in there that if we are trying to promote togetherness and the good of the community, that we should not say things in the letter that I think do the exact opposite.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go around to other members of the council to get their opinions before we go to those amendments then. Next, I'd like to go to Jill Grant.
I do not have any comments on the letter. I support it as is, but I'm willing to listen to Dave's amendments. Thanks.
Okay. Next, Dan Haggerty.
No comments. Yeah, generally support the letter. Yep.
Okay. Len Erickson, next.
As other people have said, I agree with this. Well, I agree with the spirit of what Dave is speaking to, but I want to see his amendments. In terms of support for the letter, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. And I felt I did hear Harvey say that when all was said and done, it came down to the responsibility and payment for the intertie pipeline. And when something was cited that said Half Moon Bay does make some use of it, that's sufficient for me to say you shouldn't have to talk about it anymore. So therefore I support the letter.
Okay. Greg, do you want to make any comments
this letter was written by a professional psychiatrist, not by me, or it would be a lot stronger. I would point out that 18% of GCSD residents are in the city of Half Moon Bay. So they're suing themselves. As far as Dave's overarching comment about leaving out the details, I don't agree that everybody keeps at the top of their mind the history and context in which we're writing this letter. So although I'm willing to consider changes in format, I do agree with providing some background and context to the people who are going to be getting this. So that's my immediate thought. But I'm willing to let.
Okay. Claire, did you want to say anything else?
At one point, I thought about just leaving out all the history and just saying, here's what we think. But as Greg said, we did a lot of work just getting that history to come together. That was not obvious. And I think that people in general, even some of the litigants, I think, are not totally aware of all of the history. And I think it probably is important to leave it in there.
Okay.
I think it's a sad situation. I wish there was a solution. I just end up being like Rodney King. Can't we all just get along? But I'm interested to hear what people have to say.
Okay. And I came into this late, but I was one of the co-authors of the letter after Greg and Claire did all the work. So I can't take too much credit, but I do support the letter, but am open to hearing Dave's amendments. So let's go back to Dave for those amendments.
All
And
right.
Dave, how do you want to do this? Like, do you want to, I know you had made them on a document, but it was probably not the latest version.
I did actually, fortunately, my changes actually removed most of those paragraphs that you changed. So I actually incorporated your changes into my version.
So do you want to share your screen and show? Okay.
Says somebody else is still screen sharing. I'm stopping that.
I just stopped it.
Okay. So I hope everybody is now seeing this. I'm only on a single laptop tonight instead of two, so I can't be sure. First, very simple on the addressing, and I've said this on other letters. It's not appropriate to address the letter to bodies as a whole. In my opinion, there should be specific addressees, and I strongly suggest it be the GMs of the various districts and the Half Moon Bay city manager. If you really want to send it to the boards directly, then it should say the board of MWSD, City Council of Half Moon Bay, et cetera. But I do think the GMs will and city managers will report, so I don't think that's necessary. Okay, so the major changes were to drop paragraphs 2, 3, and the original 4, which is now paragraph 5. I really don't think they add a lot. I think they have issues with being confrontational. We've already seen in today's edit an attempt to deal with some major omissions and a couple of inaccuracies in the history that were in the first version of the letter. I'm not at all, not having only been on the coast for 10 years, although I've talked to some of the people who've been here 30 and 35 years, I'm not at all confident that the history is really correct. I'm not saying there's huge inaccuracies, but I think people will start nitpicking on the history and ignore the major thrust of the letter. And so I think the history has been uncovered, it's been documented in the slides, and if something is not in the slides that's in the letters, they can be added to the slides easily. And I think that would be fine. I think that's great to document all of that. And then I also dropped the new paragraph 4 in today's version. So then after that, I made other changes. I've shown them because of my experience last time where Adobe Acrobat wouldn't show the changes that I could see. I've actually explicitly made them strike out and bold here. And I will leave this up for a bit. And then I also have a clean version with essentially, if this was a change document, all the changes accepted. So it can be on the video. Here's the full clean version of the letter. And then I'll come back and talk about the specific changes.
Can you go back to the strikeout version?
Absolutely. I plan to mostly refer to the strikeout version. I just want to have the clean version in the video long enough that people can see it and have a chance to stop it at the right place. So here is the strikeout version.
So Michelle, could I comment?
Yeah.
When you're done.
Let's have Dave.
Let me just go through it really quickly once, and then we can do whatever back and forth Michelle and the other officers want to do. So I struck the word currently in the first paragraph because it's been an area of controversy for ages. So no need to just put currently in there. In what's now my second paragraph, under the costs of pursuing and defending against the suit, I think adding and the financial implications of H&B's demands are even higher does not add anything to what we're really asking for, which is that the suit be dropped and the agencies all start working together. And I think it tends to put the city of Half Moon Bay more on the defensive. Similarly, I removed the part where only Half Moon Bay has the power to withdraw the suit. It doesn't matter who has the power to withdraw the suit. We're sending this to all the bodies and we're asking them to settle this one way or another. It may not be a suit withdrawal. It may be a negotiated settlement. Sorry, and then I replaced that with to date. Similarly, I dropped the last sentence, the trial date has not been set, because, you know, it doesn't really matter if the trial date has been set or not. Similarly, in the next paragraph, the change was not, you know, a controversial kind of thing. It's just I thought the wording was better. The next paragraph, MC advocates for a renewed effort, reads to me better than advocates a renewed effort. But, you know, I don't feel strongly about that. And again, at the end of that paragraph, I dropped the word rancor and put in litigation, because again, while the word rancor has been expressed by a number of people in the meeting, both in the community and on the council, I think that it does not promote, you know, the chances for a resolution. On behalf of the community paragraph, I added that start of the phrase because the reason we're writing this letter is not because we on the council want it, although there are some who very much want it. It's because we feel, and I certainly agree, most of the people in the community want it, and we should make that clear. And then I dropped the phrase at the end, while honoring the agreements of the past. The whole reason this lawsuit exists, as Harvey has made clear in his answers tonight, is disagreement about what that agreement was. So saying, oh, just please honor the agreements of the past, when the whole lawsuit is about that disagreement, to me, does not seem like a good idea. So those are the changes I proposed. And I will now, at this time, move that we accept my amended version of the letter.
Okay. Do we have a second?
How do we first debate what the amendments should be? I mean, remind me how that works.
Davis has proposed an amendment. Len has seconded it now. So now we're going to debate the amendment, and You can make an amendment to the amendment if there's certain parts of it, I guess, that you don't agree with. Or
Should I go
we
first?
can accept. Actually, I want to go around in the same order just for fairness here. So let's go. So Dave was first and Jill is second.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, go ahead, Jill, just on the amendment
I-
that Dave has proposed.
The only thing that I like in the proposed amendment is inserting litigation for the rancor. I think that's what that says. But the rest of it, I don't agree with. I would much prefer the full letter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dan, next, Dan Haggerty, please.
Can I pass for right now, please?
Yeah, we can come back to you. Len is next.
Sort of saying the same thing Dan is. I prefer to hear the authors of the letter speak to the amendments first because they have a deeper understanding of the letter.
Okay, Greg is next on the list.
So I appreciate your wordsmithing, Dave, and I could agree with most of it, including the rancor litigation change. The reason I object to a couple of changes is as follows. Where you crossed out the financial implications of Half-Moon-based demands, we're talking 58% of $22 million, not just legal fees. So I think that phrase needs to be in there because it is important to the community. And that is, in fact, the bulk of the costs we'll be facing. As far as deleting only Half Moon Bay has the power to withdraw the suit, I think that's an important point. You know, that's where we are. I agree with most of the rest of the changes. As far as the last change about while honoring the agreements of the past, I'm torn on that one. Could be reworded to say something about working together in a cooperative spirit, the way the original integrated system was designed. But you know, I get your point. You're right. They do not want to honor the agreements of the past.
Okay. Claire is next.
Yeah, I have a hard time with all of these many changes. Some of them are substantive and should be dealt with, and some of them are like, oh, this wording would sound better than the other wording. So I have there's a lot to deal with here. I think we already talked about whether to drop the history or not, and we at least talked briefly about the benefits of leaving it in as opposed to taking it out. Some of this stuff, I see where you're coming from. Like I just take what Greg just said about only Half Moon Bay can drop the suit. Well, obviously they're the ones that filed it. I mean, duh. However, in talking to people don't even seem to understand that. They think, well, maybe we'll just do something, it'll be fine. We don't want to do this anymore. Well, we don't have a choice of not doing it anymore. So there's some of the things that were put in there because I think people actually are not fully aware of them. So that's all I want to say for right now.
Okay, thank you. And I will say that, yeah, it's tough to do like all or nothing with all of these changes because they're so broad. Personally, I agree with the letter, who the letter is addressed to, that proposed change. I would prefer to leave the history in. I think we work hard to make this as factual as possible without without explicitly blaming Half Moon Bay or really blaming anyone, just trying to provide the factual history of this. And the changes that we made today, I think helped to make it less, we didn't want it to come off as one-sided at all. And so I think the changes we already made today helped with that. So I actually would be in favor of leaving the history in here. But I do agree with a lot of the other changes toward the end of the letter. So I'll just leave it at that for now. And then let's go back to Dan and then Len.
I agree with Jill and Greg, the ranker, but I'm feeling that majority of the letter should remain the same. That's it.
Okay, Len?
So when we use the term, you prefer to keep the history in, is that largely the paragraph that begins in 1996?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
It's actually 4 paragraphs at this point in the revised letter.
Yeah, they're not in what you're seeing on screen.
Yeah,
Therefore,
I can stop sharing and Michelle can share that, or I can share the
you
original.
can just scroll back up, right?
Oh, yeah, I
Or
can.
did you? Oh, did you?
No, I did not include those
Oh,
because
okay.
it just led to too much strikeout noise.
Right.
Hold on a second.
It's the 4 paragraphs, the second, third, fourth, and fifth paragraph with the version on the website.
Are you seeing the original letter now?
Yes.
I see it. Yeah, I was looking at it there. I just, didn't know whether it was concentrated in one, but what you're saying is all 4 paragraphs are considered the history.
That was my quick summary, yes.
Is the history itself, though, stated historically, and you've excised things that would be considered as more personal in nature?
Part of the reason I excised them is I did feel like they came across as somewhat biased. As I think I said, the changes, and I agree with Michelle, the changes that were made today in response to some community members' comments were to the council as a whole, do improve the history and remove some of my concerns. But I still don't feel like for what we really are asking for, which is for this lawsuit to be resolved and for the different agencies to be able to work together successfully, I guess is the best word to put in, including community members to improve things in the future. I did not feel like the history really added anything to that. And so I didn't want to pick through it word by word and rewrite it. There were already too many word by word changes in my revisions, in my opinion. I will suggest, I'm sorry, Len, this is your turn to talk. Keep going. I do have one other thing to say.
My comment was, I'd like, since the spirit of this was trying to get to a point of positive reconciliation, I would take the second and third, the 2 paragraphs before the last paragraph, and I'd stick them at the front of the letter, sort of indicating the spirit we want to bring to it. In the letter with the last paragraph that's there, and ideally reduce the history. I see its value, but by the time you go through 4 paragraphs of history, it's sort of getting bludgeoned with it. So, and I realize that's a major change, but I'd like to see it start off on the positive note, make reference to history considerations a little bit more tightly, and close it. And that I recognize that's a larger change, but that's my feeling about it.
Okay.
So, Michelle, can I make one other
Yes.
suggestion at this point?
Yeah, please do.
And I know it's not really my turn, but one other possibility is, unless the authors of the letter see this as a truly time critical thing, one possibility is for the authors to go back and do a new version of this letter based on what they've heard tonight. And if we were going to do that, then we could perhaps go through the history paragraphs very quickly on things that might change.
Yeah, I would just say if we are going to do that, the next time that we'd really have the availability to have this on the council wouldn't be for another month, because we have already a pretty full agenda for the first meeting in June. So that would be an option, but I would say June 23rd I think is the next time that I would say we could have this, which may not make a difference. This is a long process, it sounds like.
I gotta agree with that, because I didn't think we could come out of this meeting with an agreed letter, because we just don't have, under the Brown Act, the ability to see what each other is thinking until we get into one of these group design sessions. So I don't know how Claire feels.
Claire, you're on mute. Claire, we can't hear you right now.
Okay. I like Glenn's suggestion of moving some of the more positive content or aspirational content to the beginning of the letter. I think that would definitely make a difference. The last thing I want to do is make things worse, but honestly, with the litigation rancor substitution and moving some of the latter part to the beginning, I don't know that we're going to do much better, but it's up to the group.
Yeah, I would personally rather finalize this tonight than have it as another topic at another meeting, have another discussion on it. I think we're pretty close, but it's going to be a bit of a process, and it's already 9:45 and we have one other topic. And I see that Chris has raised his hand, but it is, yeah, I'll let him speak because he has good suggestions. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm sorry to jump in again. I just, now I feel pressure though. I don't know if I have a good suggestion. I don't think it is, but I just wanted to say again, as a member of this community, that I really appreciate Dave's thinking, and Dave is a very judicious person and a great person to have on the council. And I often talk to Dave for my own counsel to, soften my emotions, because, I get emotional sometimes about these issues. So I appreciate that. However, I guess I would ask the council and even Dave, like, what is lost? Let's just take the example of the word rancor in there. That's not a bad suggestion, right? But what is lost by leaving it in there? This is not a flame-throwing letter that's going to make the MCC look bad or have us discounted as some kind of like just crazy organization with a bunch of angry people with torches and pitchforks that don't know what they're talking about. I don't think anybody would take that away from this letter. And I've long advocated for a little more, I don't know, a little more emotion, I guess, from the MCC, a little more strength in position when dealing with these other agencies. As somebody's pointed out, there's nothing that we can do anyways except make a statement. And when the statement is edited to be as inoffensive as possible, I think the MCC loses an opportunity to make that statement, and now becomes kind of a milquetoast statement of position. Not even a strong statement of position, but I guess my question is, what is lost if it just went out exactly as is? What is lost to the MCC with the letter going that way? Again, I don't think it's a flame-throwing letter, so I don't see. It seems more authentic as is. Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate the extra time.
Well, I don't. I think we should just keep it to the council once we started.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion. I don't know. Okay, so if we were going to withdraw this letter and do it at a future meeting, I would actually think the only way that's going to work is if I step out of this and Dave steps in. Would you be willing, if we do that, would you be willing to work with Claire and Greg on the letter for the next?
Yeah, sure, I'd be willing to do that.
Okay.
I'm also willing, I mean, I've made my, I think I've made my points pretty clear. And if Greg and Claire have both heard them, I don't need to be part of it. But I'm certainly willing to be part of a rewrite.
I would hope that if you would agree to do it, that you've heard the other points and you could bring a letter that, well, it wouldn't necessarily go on the consent agenda, shouldn't require a lot of discussion.
I would hope so. I think I've heard from 4, if I counted right, maybe 5 of the council want some form of the history in the letter. And I think with your suggestion, Len, and moving the closing paragraphs up to the front, that the impact of the history is less significant. And as I say, the changes made today do improve the history section significantly over the original version. So yeah, I think we could do that and have a letter with hopefully very minimal discussion based on what I've heard tonight.
Okay,
I, for
Claire
one, look
and
forward
Greg,
to
what do you think about that?
I look forward to editing Dave Olson for a change.
I don't want to do it.
Okay.
I think if we're trying to reduce the amount of negative energy that goes into this, having it drag on and having people think about, oh, what is the MCC doing about this? Here's what they said now. What are they going to say next? Just increases the amount of potentially negative energy that goes into this. I would really like to get it settled tonight and get it over with.
Okay.
Okay, so what about this?
Go ahead.
What? I was going to say, why don't we split up the amendments into different parts, do quick run through votes on each, and see if we can get this finalized.
Yeah, I can't do it in the document fast enough, but I was going to say I can withdraw my dropping of the new revised history and agree to incorporate lens changes to move the closing paragraphs to the front. And then I think after that, there are very few changes that are controversial.
Okay.
So do you want to go through them one by one, or should I?
Well, can you edit your document live?
I could, but I think if you think you can do it live, go for it. What I was going to say is it sounded like dropping the word currently in the first paragraph did not bother anybody. I bow to Greg and Claire to leave the financial implications in, so that strikeout goes away. Only Half Moon Bay has the power to withdraw the suit.
Wait, financial implications? Okay, so that's, never mind.
Leave it in.
That's not a change, okay.
And how about only Half Moon Bay has the power to withdraw or facilitate settlement of the suit? Because that settlement would be a different way of resolving this. It doesn't have to be withdrawn. Would that be acceptable to Greg and Claire?
Yes.
Sorry, what is that?
Okay, so unsuccessful and only Half Moon Bay has the power to withdraw or settle the suit or facilitate settlement of the suit.
Shouldn't we just say settle to make it simpler?
You could, but the other parties have to agree to settlement, so it depends on how precise you want to be. And then I will withdraw.
You wanted, can we get rid of that?
Let's see. Yeah, a trial date has not been set. How strongly do Greg and Claire feel about that?
I thought it needed to be there. I mean, I don't know, it's not life or death, because this could drag on for quite a long time with COVID backups in the court and stuff. And every day that goes by, we're paying more money.
Yeah, leave it. How about my rewording in the next paragraph, Claire and Greg?
Can you say what it is? It's hard to read.
Oh, that could be better used for other needs instead of, and many other hazards and needs.
That's an improvement.
Okay.
I'll live with it.
I just need to know. So my edit is the version, and since I'm not seeing yours anymore,
Yeah.
Dave.
Okay, sorry. It's the paragraph that starts with the lawsuit.
Yeah, financial resources.
And okay, so it would now read limited financial resources that could be better used for other needs, period. And then the next sentence just starts with it instead of and it.
Okay.
And how about the rancor versus litigation?
I think everybody agrees on that.
Okay, great. And on behalf of the community?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. And dropping
Sorry, on behalf of the community.
for in the paragraph that currently starts, the MCC calls for an end.
Oh, right.
And I think we all agreed on dropping the while honoring the agreements of the past at the end of that paragraph.
Okay, but now, yep. And now we're moving these.
These final two paragraphs now get moved to the beginning, right, Len?
I thought not the last one, but the two prior to that go to the front and then the last one closes it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, cut and then paste at the front.
After the first paragraph
Yeah, exactly.
or before?
After.
After.
It's just that we say the following summary reflects our best understanding of the history, and then we don't do the summary right after that.
Yep, yep.
I think that's still okay.
But you could say the summary below.
Yeah,
Or
there
the
you go.
enclosed summary or the summary below.
The summary below, I think, is fine.
Okay. And then
this is the
these
most
are-
complex on-the-fly editing we've ever done. This seems to be
I
successful.
know. I need the names of these people, but
I think that we don't need to
Yeah,
vote on
sure.
that if people agree that the GM should be listed.
right.
Are you going to copy the boards also?
Well, that's
CC all the
the
boards?
question for you and Claire, I think.
I
Claire, do you have
mean,
an opinion?
I'm not strongly opposed, if that's what you think.
yeah,
is the right
I would copy the boards. And,
Okay.
and if you want, I can definitely get you the names of all those people.
Yeah, I'm gonna need all of that by
It-
tomorrow. So I
They
can
all
send it.
have aliases for the entire body, so we can use those.
Okay. I'm just gonna put a note for myself. Greg, if you could please work on getting me those email addresses.
Okay.
For Half Moon Bay, do you want to copy the council?
Sounds like
Or-
it. I think it would be wrong to do the boards of the others and not the council as a whole.
Okay.
Wow.
All right, so we have a motion.
Okay, so I amend my original amendment. I dropped my original amendment, and I now propose the letter as amended and on the screen.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All right. Anyone want to debate this? Let's go for a vote.
Okay.
Or this is a vote on the amendments.
Are we good with that, everyone?
Is it on the amendment or on the letter?
On the amendment.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from Claire and Greg.
No, I'm good.
So vote.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Calling the roll for the vote on the amended letter. Greg,
Aye.
Len,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The amendment to the motion to amend the letter passes unanimously.
Okay. And now we'll move to the motion that's already on the table on the approval of the letter as amended. If anyone wants to debate this further, please go ahead, or we'll move to a vote. All right, let's vote.
All right, same order. Greg,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Dave is also yes. It passes unanimously. Wow, thanks
All
everyone.
right, we did it.
We actually can get along. And we
What
just
an
need to
example
spread it
we
out.
are.
Totally. All right. Okay, so that's great. Let's move on to the last main topic, which is the MCC quarterly newsletter summer edition. So we're just debating. We're not debating actually. I'm putting together the plan for the summer edition of the newsletter, and all we need to figure out tonight is the content and whether the existing roles are going to stand. So previously we had Jill as the editor of the content, and then myself as the technical person, and then we have volunteers to write content. So I'm going to share my screen here to talk about what I would propose in terms of the content and the timeline. Can you guys all see this?
Can you make it bigger?
Yeah, I can. I think. Oops. Oh, that didn't work. Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Okay. All right. So, and I may be missing something here. I actually want to first talk about the timeline. So, we sent the previous version of the newsletter at the end of March. So now 3 months later would be the end of June. So tonight we decide on the content and timeline. Everyone would have until June 12th to draft their content. And so we'll divide it up like we did last time. The editor, which is Jill, would complete the review by the 15th. I would put everything into MailChimp and get it ready by the 17th, and then send it over for translation to the county. And then we'd send the newsletter on June 24th. Trying to minimize the time between when the content is written and the email is sent, but allowing still 7 days for translation. Okay, so topics proposed. Last time we had 5 main topics. We have to figure out what the actual details are on this, but definitely want to have some wildfire topics on here. I wanted to do an update on the Meteor Creek Bridge, since that seems to be is moving forward after the Coastal Commission weighed in, and then a letter or a note on the COVID vaccine and the progress that we've been making toward that. Go around the council if anyone has any ideas for additional topics or would like to volunteer to write one of these topics.
I would volunteer to work on the wildfire. You have the notion of subtopics, which I agree with, but because I think the 2 meetings in June will really provide significant discussion, I would rather see this schedule moved out a month. Because we're having the draft content due before we even have, well, a couple days.
I actually think that June 9th will be the main content on wildfire. At least that's how I planned this. I know that we'll probably have some additional content on the second meeting in June. So that's why I put the date to have the content due after the 9th. If we think that we need more time, I mean, the issues are going to continue to evolve regardless. I definitely don't want to have extended delays like we did last time.
Michelle, I hear what you're saying there, and I would agree that we'll have a discussion on the 9th. My feeling is it'll extend importantly to the 23rd or whatever, 24th. So if we have that flexibility to to look at that point and possibly extend it based on what we accomplish in the first meeting in June.
Okay, let me hear from other people.
So Michelle, I don't understand why we're doing a Medio Creek Bridge update. The Coastal Commission action has been widely reported on Coastside Buzz, Nextdoor, and in the Half Moon Bay Review. What are we going to add?
Well, if anyone doesn't read those publications, they would hear from us. I don't know.
And
No,
they're not
it's
going to
just
read our newsletter either. And the same thing on the COVID vaccine progress. By the time this comes out, we'll be past June 15th and the state's basically wide open again.
Yeah.
What we could say about
Medio
Medio
County
Creek
has
Bridge,
the highest percentage of vaccinated people in the state.
Then that would be
Yeah,
something great
but
to report. I mean,
would-
I'm open.
as far as the vaccine, I think we did a terrible job, and I could point you to an article I wrote. San Mateo County was slow getting off the dime, but I do agree the Medio Creek Bridge makes sense to bring up, so we can take credit for it, huh? But I think we ought to flatter. I think we ought to flatter the community for the advocacy and effort they put into making it happen.
All right.
Okay, so we're, doesn't someone want to vote or sorry, volunteer to write the Medio Creek Bridge update?
I'll write it. I'll write it.
Okay. Remember, it's not an opinion article on Coastside Buzz. It's
It sure will be.
Factual update. We
Don't
need
break
to
your
keep
arm
this-
patting yourself on the back.
Well, you too, big guy.
Okay, let's go.
What else? Is there anything that I have
Well,
that I've missed here? I know we can talk
could-
details on wildfire. Any other
have some-
topics someone wants to propose?
I always suggest instead of the COVID vaccine progress that we do something about maybe with the Chamber of Commerce or something to see, what's happening with businesses and stuff locally.
It's sort of a
Okay.
good angle.
Okay, so like reopening post-COVID
Yeah,
together with the chamber.
that's just off the top of my head, but yeah, something like that.
Would you like to volunteer for that?
Sure, I'll do it.
Thank you. I see that Sid has her hand raised, and we definitely want to hear from the community on this as well. So go ahead.
Well,
Sid.
there's just two things that I never heard Jill comment on the fire station comment that Director, I forgot his name, Gary said about them being exempt from the lighting change. And maybe they were talking about the other station in Half Moon Bay. But secondly, nobody brought up at all the lawsuit that the Midcoast Echo has against the Coastal Commission. I think that's very topical. But maybe it's too much of a, what do you call it? Stub your toe, because doesn't the county kind of weigh in on this newsletter?
No, we're doing it all
Okay.
ourselves now, but it's generally about topics that we've covered on the MCC. And since we haven't
Okay.
done anything on that yet.
Well, I think we did cover Mid-Penn for about 2 years, but that's all right. I was just putting a suggestion out there. But
That's a good one.
I do think the fire station lighting makes some sense. I'm not sure what we're going to write pending future events, but I mean, that's an important community topic. And I know
Right.
Jill and Dan put in a lot of work on that.
Okay.
basically, I think I heard him say they did an end run around. You have to listen to that video.
Yeah, I know we we did have this on the newsletter last time, but there haven't been substantial updates. I mean, we've tried to make progress, but yeah, we can definitely have that on there if we think there are going to be updates by this time. So wildfire safety, I mean, okay, so I guess there's two questions. One is, what would be the subtopics that we talk about here? I think we're definitely going to have something on El Granada medians after the next meeting. We may have additional topics to discuss that are TBD. The question would be, do we want to postpone the letter by 2 weeks, just move the timeline back by 2 weeks to capture things we might figure out between June 9th and June 23rd. That unfortunately would push us into like the July 4th holiday in terms of timeline. So that would probably slow down translation and potentially, delay our efforts. So I wouldn't advocate for that. I'd rather just send this out according to the proposed timeline, but I'd love to hear from other members of the council. Greg?
I think that the wildfire topic is so important that we need to get it. And the more timely we can make it, the better. I mean, I don't know how quickly we can get volunteers to turn something around between the next meeting and the time you want to do the newsletter, but yeah, it's a big deal.
Well, anything we discuss at the next meeting will be available. Like the next meeting will be before the newsletter contents due. So it's just the question of whether the second meeting in June will have additional information. I mean, we're always going to be finding out new information. There's always going to be more to report. And what I really don't want to have happen is what happened last time, where we had Connect the Coastside as a topic and the newsletter got delayed by 2 weeks because Len didn't finish his topic. And so I want to set a timeline. I want us to stick to it. So if we can't all agree to this timeline, then we can move it back. I also want to hear from Jill because she's the editor. Does this timeline work for you, Jill? Or would you prefer to push it back by 2 weeks?
I can work with either one.
Okay.
And I don't need to be editor. If somebody else wants to do it, I'm fine with that.
We find you real quick.
I want you to continue as editor.
Well, I guess looking at this, you say decide on content and timeline. I don't really think, I mean, we're not coming off this meeting deciding on content and wildfire because we've already commented that there may be multiple subtopics. So let's say the goal would be to have an organization of the subtopics by next week. And that's halfway to there, to at least see what's coming up. And we could certainly use 1 or 2 more people that wanted to work on it.
Yeah, so the way this is supposed to work is that individual authors, this is from County Council, individual authors should be writing each topic, but we do have the working group of the 3 of us, me, Greg, and Len, who are focused on wildfire. So I think we could, among ourselves, decide on those subtopics and split them up so each one of us could take one of them. And then we can decide on the actual, the content within the wildfire main topic by the time that it's due. So it's like TBD 1, TBD 2, maybe, for something for wildfire safety. We could have a volunteer on the El Granada fire station lighting, whether that's Jill, and then we could do what we did last time, whereas I think Dave edited Jill's writing. Jill, would you be okay writing the update on the fire station lighting, or would you like, or Dan?
Yeah, I think so. What would be the deadline?
June 12th. Can you do that? Do you want to do that, Dan? Do you want to write the letter and Jill edits it, or Jill writes it?
You asked Jill first, so I just want it, but I would be.
I don't care. You want to do it, then Jill can edit it.
Yeah, if she has time.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay. So are we okay with this then, and stick to the original timeline?
I am.
Okay.
I'm okay. Notice I'm not doing anything except possibly some editing.
Well, it doesn't, if Jill is not writing any of the content, then you wouldn't need to edit. Okay, let's do it then. All right. That's it for this topic then. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to council activity. Who wants to go first? I know Jill had something she wanted to say about the fire station lighting. Greg and Len have updates about fire. I'm sure there are other updates as well. Who wants to go first?
Want to go first, Jill?
No, I don't want to go first. I have to look for a document.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Greg had a very specific table he wanted to step through, so how about if he goes first?
Michelle, it's that issues list we had.
Yeah,
but I think
that's
what,
on the site.
what I'm really going to
There's not much of a change since last time, but go ahead.
well, I think most of what I would say would fall under the future agenda item. The only thing I think we could note is that we've asked Tim Fox to comment on the legal situation and our options about the gate at the top of El Granada Boulevard. I don't know what else we could say. I mean, I have some frustration about the lack of progress on a bunch of things, but I think if we agendize them for the next meeting, that's the appropriate time to ask, for instance, the county parks people to come talk about what the heck is the timeline for changing the permit process. So I guess, Len, did you want me to say more? That's really it.
No, I think Len has an update. So can I just, so the issues, we stepped through that issues list last time. And I made the changes since the last time, and it was very minor, actually. The changes that I made was primarily just to add an additional item at the end, which Len can speak to around the fire marshal.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, so I wanted to bring up, I guess, 2 or 3 things. First of all, I've attended 2 of the last 3 Fire Safe San Mateo and learned a little bit more about its organization. So I think it's important that we be well represented there, but I also think that it is basically in the process of trying to grow into what it needs to bring together. The most striking thing about it is some of the largest landholders within the county as a whole are MROSD, SFPUC, the National Park Service, and state parks. And those are all big dogs and they sort of play somewhere else. But this is a big challenge with fire as a whole. And I think they need to be sort of brought into the process as well. And that's, even so to put ourselves having a representative on, it really isn't quite set up that way. So, but I think there'll be change by the time we get to our next meeting. I've also said that given the specific issues that relate to private residencies, especially in El Granada, but throughout the Midcoast, that we need a fire marshal dedicated to our area really for at least the next fire season, because there are so many particulars that just go begging with that coverage. And it's not that the ones there aren't doing well, they just have an enormous coverage. And I think our particular, if you just look at the fact that neither Half Moon Bay or Pacifica would have the sense of threat that we do, you can see some of the issues we have there. So consequently, I think also the grant, there's a round of grants that were finished in the last week, which we know they're there. Lena, I've talked about it a bit. She has provided some information, but I think there's more detail that we can get by our next meeting. And then has been noted, the state itself is putting a lot more money in. And for that, in order to compete, we have to figure out how to go a lot faster to get our particular needs met there. So those are all things, coming up, we can talk about more specifically next time. The most particular one on the fire marshal and the membership in the Fire Safe Council, I think can be deferred as part of the agenda next week, not necessarily here, although I just want to highlight they're important. So I guess that's my quick summary.
Okay, thank you, Len. Jill, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
So in regards to the fire station lighting, I spoke at the fire district meeting tonight as a private citizen and brought up some of the things in our letter, but I also brought up why it was such an important issue, the lighting. And I talked about how it sets a new standard on the coast for lighting, especially for fire stations. And Dan and I, as well as other people, have been researching other fire stations in the Bay Area and really California. And this is an anomaly. So Fire Station 41, the lighting is not like any other fire station we've seen. This is a new standard. And so I brought that up and asked again for them to alter the lighting. And at the end of my comment, Gary Burke reminded everyone that it had already been approved and San Mateo County had approved it, so it's a done deal. So where that leads me now is I'm wondering what does, we still get emails about this, and I'm wondering what the MCC, what are our options? Do we have any, what do we do now? Can we do anything or are we done? And so people are emailing me directly, and I want to encourage them to contact the fire district, go to the meetings, go to San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, go to planning meetings, and speak during public comment. They can also do a code violation if they want to do like what Steve Terry did. It's not too late. They can submit their own code violation. And they could also submit a public request for the records, for the cut sheets. I already did that today as well. And I mean, the community, this is their money. This is their property taxes that paid for this fire station and for this lighting. So I really feel like they're getting the shaft, but I just don't know what to do anymore to help the community. And so I'm asking other more experienced council members and the public too, because some of those people know much more than I do. Where do we go from here? Or is it just done?
Thank you for that, Jill.
Well,
I'm not sure if anyone else wants to comment or.
I can comment briefly that there's no real mechanism that I'm aware of to appeal a planning decision of this type to the Planning Commission. But if you haven't already yet, Jill, call Lisa Ketchum and ask her. She's the one who would know.
Good advice.
Could we get some advice from Tim Fox? Because this is just unacceptable. It's bad governance and it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. Where does it stop? They don't enforce their own rules. They don't enforce their own code, violations to their own codes. It's a slippery slope. I think that's a great idea to contact Tim Fox. I don't think this is going away, but the fire district is making it more difficult, and I see all those emails also, Jill. There's just a lot of community support flooding in. So
I'd like to point out we're in difficult Brown Act territory. This isn't an agenda item, and Jill has made her report. We've probably gone further than we should already.
Okay. Thank you for that. Why don't we do this? Jill, please go ahead and contact Lisa, and we can and come to me, since it's just you and Dan working on this issue right now. If there's anything else that I can do in terms of bringing it to a future agenda, or if you find any other ways that we can proceed. Okay, Any other subjects that people want to discuss in terms of council activity? Nope. Then let's
just
go
updating
Claire.
that we had the monthly presentation to the Half Moon Bay City Council uneventfully.
Is that the report?
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Okay, let's move on to future agendas. Okay, so for June 9th, I have two things already set for the agenda. One is a non-fire related item, which is a brief presentation by Coast Pride, a new organization here or I guess it's been around for a few years, but they're looking for a letter of support or endorsements by different city councils and community councils. And so they're going to come and present, and we may have a letter of support as for approval by the council. So I definitely want to hear from them on June 9th. We're also going to have wildfire preparedness. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Okay. Wildfire preparedness, we will have Quavo from the San Mateo County DPT, and he will be presenting on the project that Supervisor Horsley is trying to get funded out of Measure K funds, which is the El Granada medians. So I hope to hear presentation on June 9th.
Okay.
I know that we have a couple of other potential wildfire topics, but we don't have.
Oh, I think that if you, Greg, and I are sort of in that area where we have been, we'll both be organizing the newsletter and the agenda as we talk over the next week. So I touched on different points, but I don't think we need to say more now.
Yep. Okay. And then I just wanted to see if anyone else had other topics that they would like on one of the June agendas, or anything else that you want to bring up right
The other thing that occurs to me is we're hearing Harvey each meeting talk about their relations with the sheriff department, and it's our sheriff department too. So I guess I would like to see the sheriff's department come and talk about this situation.
Okay, we could potentially have that at the second meeting in June.
That's fine if it's warranted. Yeah.
Okay, we can talk about that more. I want to see just what's happening with that, so we can talk about that more under future agendas on the 9th for potential inclusion on the 20th.
Can I ask what this situation refers to?
The discussions with the police department or the sheriff's department and policing, since what we learned last time is that we're in a different framework than the city of Half Moon Bay is, although we have the same sheriff's department covering both. And the Half Moon Bay City Council is expressing for their public certain opinions. And I'm just trying to, I'm not even sure how we would want to represent our own community's thoughts about it, and a little bit about the sheriff's perspective on things.
Okay, anything else anyone wants to bring up?
Nope. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
I did have my hand raised for a while, but you never recognized me.
Oh, well, we tried to skirt past it, Sid.
I saw that. No, I just want to let you know they replaced Ginny McShane tonight on the fire board too. So you might want to have that woman come in and, talk about things. She might be a little more receptive than some of the other people like Gary Burke.
Who did they replace her with?
Oh God, I wish I could remember, but she's a bigwig with CERT. They all knew her. And if you look on their agenda, she's the last name, I think. Sherry somebody. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, Sherry what?
There's some Cynthia Sherrill is.
That was it. That was right. Cynthia, sorry. Sherry was what stuck in my mind. Anyway, she seemed really qualified. So there were a lot of kind of wannabes that also put their hand in the air, but one guy didn't even show up for the interview. So anyway.
Thank you for reporting on that. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn on the table. It's been seconded. Greg,
Aye.
Glenn,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
and I'm yes. Thank you
Right.
all. It was a very productive meeting. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks.